In a new age world filled with delusions and wish fulfillment.
I'm gonna count from 5 to 1 and just remember now. My diagnosis is that this is multiple personality disorder and you should take medication for it. I've seen lots of cases of MDD and this absolutely fits the MDD profile. And my professional diagnosis, therefore, is multiple personality disorder. I am studying it. I am writing a book about it. That is my next book. I feel that the whole sort of alien business is all a matter of multiple personality disorder. It's a much more widespread phenomenon than people think. Lots of people are walking around with it. It's a public health problem. And that you are, unfortunately, suffering from it.
No, Emma, don't believe it. Run!
So now I'll count from 5 to 1 and bring you out of this. And we'll talk about MPD a little bit more. 5, and I'm coming out of this.
Hey, Paratopia, it's Jeff and Jer here, along with you again for another episode. Before we get started tonight, I want to say one thing about what you're about to hear. These are recordings made by one Emma Woods, pseudonym. We do have her real name. Unlike most quote-unquote researchers looking into this who want to hide behind the idea that she's an anonymous figure, we do have her name. We do have her held to some sort of accountability. Now, as of this point, as of 12 a.m. on, what's the date today, Jeremy?
According to my calendar, it says Wednesday the 3rd. It also says 11:58.
Okay.
So 11:59. So it's 11:59 on Wednesday the 3rd.
Okay, correct. Of March 2010. As of right now, we have not heard word one publicly from Dr. David Jacobs about these recordings, about what Emma has stated, nor the evidence she has provided. We are only hearing one side of the story. We have to stress this. We are only hearing one side of the story. What you're going to hear is our commentary on what we're hearing based on Emma's recordings of her conversations with Dr. David Jacobs. We do not know the whole story, but the evidence that Emma has presented is very comprehensive. It's a large body of work, contains many recordings, many writings, and a chronological order for them all. We have no choice really to discuss this other than to give our opinions of this side. This is nothing but editorial and is strictly our opinions.
Yeah.
Hi, this audio clip contains sections of a telephone conversation that I had with Dr. David Jacobs of Temple University in late May 2007. In the conversation, Dr. Jacobs and I talked about a warning that he received on Instant Messenger from his webmaster Elizabeth's computer, which she told him was written by a hybrid, and the warning said that it was dangerous for him to work with me as there were hybrids around me who were very concerned about security. I'm of the opinion that Elizabeth wrote that herself, but Dr. Jacobs said that he believed that it was written by a hybrid. In the conversation, Dr. Jacobs read me the actual transcript of this instant messaging conversation.
Okay, so hi everybody.
Wow, someone's excited about this week's episode.
Yes, I am. So we're listening to Emma Wood's recorded conversation with Dr. David Jacobs about her regression hypnotherapy sessions involving instant messages from hybrid aliens.
That's right. Make no
That's
mistake
right.
that is what he believes about this. And these will be not just one conversation. We'll be piecing together a couple of different conversations.
Right, but let's take the overarching view here. We're talking about instant messages from hybrid aliens. Harken back, if you will, 2 weeks ago now, when we were talking about Dungeons and Dragons for adults? It doesn't get much clearer than this right now, people. Listen to this.
It says here, during the misunderstanding, we had an interaction with them. Those who are with her now are all ones who are security task-oriented. And that, of course, is exactly what you were describing. I assume that she is in non-compliance with this. From the security tasks are some of the most important. They are inflexible. You must be careful not to assist with the non-compliance, not to interfere with their tasks in any way. If they contact you, their instructions must be obeyed. I am telling you this for your own benefit. I said, okay, is there any way you can tell them that I am not affected them and I'm willing to interfere with them? And he says, I do not generally have continued contact with them. There are ways in which I must proceed to accomplish further contact. I am concerned, however. Now, when he says he's concerned, that is to be taken seriously. I will attempt to reestablish contact to control for misunderstandings. And I said, actually, you'd better not. I will contact you if the need arises. I hope that I won't. I do not want to stir things up with them. I know that they've been opposed to her writing the record, but she is in compliance with everything else. The record is many of things that happened to her many years ago. And he says, you mentioned earlier about the attempts to find you. This is how a security task-oriented individual of my kind operates. If they see a risk, they will attempt to control the risk. The methods they use are not as important as the goal of controlling the risk. In other words, the ends justify the means. You must obey their request. This is the most important information I can give to you. And there was a certain chill in me when he said it. And I said, thank you, I appreciate it. You think that they can find me halfway around the world? Distance is not viewed in the same way by my kind. If they see a risk, they will attempt to control it no matter where it resides. I said, I understand. Thank you for your advice. It is good of you to give it to me. And he said, I wish to continue our conversation. This would not be possible if the others become in control. I also have come to feel some emotion over the situation. We were talking about emotion previously in the thing. And I said, that's good. Unfortunately, I sense your emotion is fear. And he said, some fear for you, yes. I said, I will heed your advice. And he said, I do not believe you understand the control they may place on you. And I talked about paying close attention to his advice and thank for warning me, basically. And he said, they may feel you are not enough of a threat to them to control completely, but they also may. The complete control of your kind is something I have seen. You would no longer know enough. You would no longer know enough to. Got a typo here. To not like it. You may not. Got two twos. You may not know.
Okay. Well, let me say something initially. Are you recording right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Once again, folks, we're talking about instant messages from a hybrid. Jeremy?
Yeah, well, that's the important thing, isn't it? Because anytime that Dr. Jacobs says, I felt like what they said to me sent a chill down my spine, that sort of thing, nobody said anything. This is all written. This is all a written exchange. He's not talking on the phone with a man who's pretending to be a hybrid. He's having an online conversation with an anonymous person that Emma Woods is saying is this Elizabeth gal. That's her feeling on it anyway. And you will hear David Jacobs just go apeshit on her later and say, there's no way, that's not possible. He'd rather think that Emma Woods is crazy than believe that anyone other than hybrids is on the other end of that typing machine.
Okay. Well, let's kind of set the stage a little bit here. I mean, this is Elizabeth. When we say Elizabeth, who we're talking about here is another research subject of Dr. Jacobs. Am I correct?
Yes. And
subsequent, I guess, somehow friend or acquaintance of Emma's. So that's what we're talking about here. So we're talking about a guy who's getting instant messages from an alleged hybrid alien warning him to stop messing with Emma, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. And apparently, and we can't say what Dr. Jacobs actually thought about these because we honestly don't know his interpersonal thoughts when it comes to this. But it seems to me that as he's speaking, he's taking this seriously. This is not like, yeah, and I got this, and listen to this. This is more like a chill ran down my spine when I read this part.
The reason I stopped it where it is because I think it's hysterical that he is stuttering over a typo in this written communication from an advanced alien. And it couldn't possibly be some human pulling the wool over his eyes.
Right.
Unfreaking believable to me. Now, let's preface all of this, what we're going to hear next, with Emma Woods is a pseudonym, and she's gotten a lot of flack for not going public with her name. Obviously, why would she want to?
Right.
But we should let you know that she has, in fact, given us her real name, so she's not anonymous to us. Of course, we will not ever disclose that, ever, 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 so don't even ask none of our friends, don't ask privately, any of that. But it is to say that she has come forward to us, so we do know who she is, so none of her detractors can hide behind that anymore.
Right. Well, and I gave her our solemn promise that under no amount of duress are we going to reveal what her name is. But I did say that, anytime you get a piece of evidence from an anonymous source, it's largely worthless. I mean, there's not a whole lot that you can do with it. You can't. Number one, you can't hold anybody accountable for it. That's rule number one. Rule number two is if you can at least get them to give you their name, then at least you can say, I know who this individual is, and therefore I'm laying myself out there saying this is a real person who shot real footage that was not some fictitious entity out there that we know nothing about. We do have her real name, but we won't be disclosing it ever. I should say until she goes public, if she has to go public with her real name, then of course the cat's out of the bag, but we will not be revealing that. So she's not an anonymous entity to us.
Right. And I want to say also that this is not a moratorium on Emma Woods or her case. Because a lot of people argue about whether or not is she telling the truth, or is she even an abductee, or an experiencer? All that stuff. I mean, she believes that not so much anymore, right? She believes that Jacobs created false memories in her and all of this sort of stuff, and she doesn't know what to believe anymore. However, none of that is relevant to us. What's relevant is that she can be delusional, or she can be telling the truth. That's fine. She's the client. He's the researcher. He's supposed to be the stable one. He's supposed to be sane. He's supposed to not get involved in the Dungeons and Dragons aspect of this. And what we're going to hear now, and pretty much what we're going to pick apart for the rest of this episode, is a completely different phone call where it's after they've had their blowout, and she's saying that she wants to go public, but she wants to do so in a way that makes them all look good, right? She doesn't want to say anything because even though she's been through this with him, she understands what his motives were. I mean, she really believes that he believed his life was under threat by these hybrid aliens. And so, given that, she's forgiving of the liberties that he took with her and her memory to try to cover his own tail. So this is going to be her explaining that to him and trying to come to a compromise to tell people, look, this is why I'm no longer associated with him. This is why he took all of my info off of his website. And I'm putting this out there because I don't want you to think that the reason is he decided I was crazy or anything like that. That's not the case. But on the other hand, she doesn't want to do any damage to him and his reputation. And this is that conversation.
I need to interject this before we do that, though, that back to what you were saying, that this is not a moratorium on her case per se. But I do want to bring up that a lot of people on different message boards across the net have brought up the idea that this woman doesn't sound like she's right in the head as it is. Now, I think everybody needs to take a step back and realize that when these tape recordings were going on, that this woman was under some sort of obvious mental duress from what was being done to her. In other words, if she was recalling any sort of memories that were horrifying, scary, whatever was going on at the point of hypnotic regression going on, this is all very real to her, and therefore, I'm sure, incredibly debilitating to her. So if she doesn't sound quite right, or she sounds in a certain state of duress, I can perfectly understand that. I don't find her to sound like a nut job. I've communicated with her in emails, and I've certainly heard enough of her preambles to her recorded conversation with Dr. Jacobs, where she certainly sounds very coherent, very together. She certainly organized her data in a cohesive way. So, that's what you could say to that. If she sounds a bit out of it or a bit under duress, I can kind of understand that at the point of where she is with this.
If you want to know the whole history of their blowout, how she met him, what happened, everything that brought us to this moment, I will put it on our forum. She's emailed it to me with links. There's about 155 points in this of history, so we're not going to read it now during the show. But if you're interested, it'll all be on our forum, and it will all be in this show thread. So, without further ado.
With regard to the confidentiality, last time we spoke, you said that if I quoted the IM stuff that you had told me about, that you would reveal my identity. And I've looked at my confidentiality contract that I had with you, and it says that I would agree not to play the tapes of my hypnosis sessions, and in return you would guarantee.
Yeah, technically that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well,
I'm not, before you say anything, I'm not sort of sitting here nitpicking. I'm quite happy to work out things with you that make you happy. So I'm not saying I will put it forward or anything like that.
What would make me happy is that you don't quote anything, as I said. I will not reveal your identity under any circumstances, period. Period.
Okay, so that is that a guarantee? Because last time you were threatened.
That is a guarantee. No, that is a guarantee.
Right. Okay.
Now she's saying guarantee her anonymity. And he says, yes, I guarantee your anonymity. But yet she goes back and she says, well, you said before you threatened to... wonder what that was.
Right.
I mean, was he threatening to actually out her publicly by name?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure in the fit of anger and frustration that this has caused him, I'm sure that sounds like a reasonable possibility to me. I mean, they don't make it clear, but he's certainly not denying that happened.
Yeah. There's bad move number one. To continue.
The other thing is that I'm wondering whether we can work out because I want to go ahead with my work, and because of what's happened, you and I are now in an awful opposing position, and I don't really want that to be hanging over my work for my sake, and I also don't want to do anything to hurt you for your sake. And I'm wondering whether it would be possible to work out a joint statement together that I could stick on my website to explain why we don't work together and why my material is not on your website anymore, which covers both our situations in a way that we're happy with. So I can
that would be fine. That is workable. That's doable. Mm-hmm. That is indeed doable. Yes, that we can do.
Right. Okay.
I don't think I am taping. Oh well, doesn't matter. You have put me in a very, 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 I cannot emphasize that enough, a very, very difficult position. You have, to a certain extent, made it almost impossible for me to use your material after years of working with you and without identifying you, etc., etc. I'm going to have to do a workaround. The more you dig in your heels, the more difficult it becomes.
Sorry, what do you mean by digging in the heels? You mean by saying I believe the emails were written in my sleep rather than by hybrids?
No, not that. No, it's all about you. The more you dig in your heels about that and about the IMs and about these extremely important matters in my life that, in fact, it did to a degree, and I'm saying that I'm choosing my words carefully here.
I'm sorry. Sorry, could you start again, David? You completely lost me. I don't really understand what you're saying.
What are you saying about that?
That I believe her case is a hoax.
Yes.
Okay.
And the IMs as the hoax.
Yeah.
Has put me in a situation whereby, well, let me just say that those IMs have nothing to do with you, but did in fact impact upon you at the very, very end. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. They did impact upon you a little bit. But it was really about me, and it wasn't about you. However, I have never had this happen to me in all the years I've done this, and you have done things to me that are so awful and so horrible.
Like what?
That it's hard for me to even talk with you.
Right. Okay. When you say those things, those are really big allegations that I've done things to you that are so horrible and so awful. You need to say what they are, because otherwise it's just meaningless.
Well, this business about the hoaxing, and I've been taken in, and I'm not professional because I refuse to look at it, and all the rest of that stuff, and and thereby pulling the rug out from underneath everything that we have done for 2.5 years, and the enormous amount of time that I have given you is just awful.
So what you're saying is
Even
that the
though
fact
you
that I
believe it's
believe
true.
her case is a hoax is me being really horrible to you.
Well, it's not just that. It's that there's you're forgetting all the other sequelae and after effects. You're forgetting all the stuff that went with it that you said to me.
Like what?
Well, I'm not going to go over that again.
No, you
I know you're taping this, but I'm just not going to go over that again.
It's just meaningless. I mean, basically...
Well, it may be meaningless to you.
People can have different views. You believe it's real. At first, I believed it probably was real because I didn't think that it, and then I became aware that it didn't add up to me, and now I think it's a hoax, and that's my prerogative as a human being, and it's not
but
awful.
If you write that as a fact,
I will say that my opinion.
You will be harming everything I've done. You will be harming my family. You will be harming my job. You will just be engaged in destruction.
Wow.
Wow. Wowie, wow. So she's not allowed to level her opinion that the IMs he received are a hoax.
She's harming him. He tampered with her memory. He tried to convince her she had multiple personality disorder to convince aliens that he believed that about her. What? Yeah.
Fascinating, isn't it? I mean, really, it's fascinating. To me, at least.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fascinating on a number of levels. The obvious one. It's also fascinating that, when we were talking to Dr. Lilienfeld about if you had a real therapist, it would be the therapist-client relationship, where they go through these stages of seeing you as a mother or father figure, a lover, an enemy, all of those stages. I mean, she smacks of someone who looks up to this guy still. She's trying to do her best
father
here.
figure, yes.
Yeah, and this just goes to the point that we made during that episode of, if you don't have that background in the way those relationship dynamics play out, then you can incidentally, accidentally, whatever, end up taking advantage of somebody because your relationship is hierarchical. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Ultimately it's damaging. I mean, you've got to know how to handle those kinds of remarks and that type of attitude coming from a subject. You need to be able to say, we need to take a step back, or we need to solidify this part of the relationship between the client and the patient. But you're not talking about a patient here. She is a research subject. That's what she is. But as I told you on the phone this week, I mean, you do get, I think, in terms of what Scott had told us about that client-patient relationship, you see that ultimately within UFO research as well. When a person calls you, just say about a sighting, and you have the suspicion that there was more to it than a sighting, you keep that to yourself until that person comes to you and says, I kind of remember this, but I don't remember this. There's something weird. There's something more that has gone on here. And ultimately, in the beginning, you are the life ring. When you start getting into the deeper aspects of their case with them, they hate you for it because you have been the catalyst of what's made them remember this. Okay? And eventually that goes away and it's replaced by, like you say, like someone that you love. You become very close with these people. And I hate to say it, but most times during the end, when you move on to the next case and you've resolved your work with these people, you've given them what help you can. As far as, I mean, in my case, it was never more than advice. I didn't recommend hypnotherapy to anyone. I never did hypnotherapy on anyone because I'm not even remotely qualified to do something like that. I mean, nor did I consider it any kind of valid tool. But ultimately, when you leave that case and you move on, those people almost feel alienated from you then. They feel like, well, they left me. They abandoned me. So then you have that kind of thing to sew up in a bow before you get done with the case. This happens across the board when it comes to any sort of personal research like this about an event that happens to an individual. This is how it goes down. But what it sounds like here is that, and I mean, we have to preface all this by saying this is strictly our opinion based on all available information. We're not leveling any kind of judgment here against anyone. But to my opinion here, it sounds to me like he's embarrassed, of course, by the notion that she is going to say he got IMs that frightened him, and I believe these IMs were from someone else. I think that's really the crux of the matter right now that they're discussing. And he does not want that coming out, because think about this, people. Think about the David Jacobs that you've seen on TV, heard on radio shows, read books by. This doesn't seem like the type of guy, or that persona that you see in a public way, is not the type of guy you would say would believe hybrids send instant messages, badly misspelled.
Yeah, and then there's, of course, the other issue that he's doing this through Temple University. So presumably, if
in some fashion,
caught wind of this and cared, there could be some ramifications there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that has to be playing in his head, plus the fact that I think he comes across to me in all of these tapes as kind of an egomaniac. So he probably really does think like, wow, you really screwed me. I mean, the way he downplays her pain through this entire recording, I think he has to, though, doesn't he? I mean, he has to downplay her hurt and her damage to her. He has to downplay that and make himself look the victim, so that she doesn't latch on to, what's going on with her. Unfortunately, she's not that easily manipulated to ignore what's happened to her, which is good. I think she holds her ground very well. She seems so strong that I wonder how it is that she ever got mixed up in this in the first place. You know?
Well, I mean, I think when you're in that kind of relationship with somebody for 2 years, I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, and you're not just talking about a couple of regression hypnotherapy sessions. You're talking about hundreds, obviously, that were done over the course of 2 years. You do, or I have seen people get very sucked up into what they remember from a regression hypnotherapy session. And that then becomes something that they focus on and feed into. And as they have more done, it just expands and gets more broad. It does mess with your head. As I think Scott said, it changes who you are as a person. These are changing and building memories.
And just as a couple of technical notes that I probably should have put at the beginning of this, when you hear things go blank for a few seconds, that's because Emma has edited out people's names or events that she doesn't want made public. And also when he said in there, God, I'm not recording this, at the beginning of this conversation, he had made it clear that he was trying to record it, and she had made it clear to him that she was recording it. So both people know that this is being recorded. And exactly. I think later on she mentions Bud, which means Bud Hopkins, just so you know, for those who are unfamiliar. Right. And now we will continue onward.
People can say that they think it's a hoax without it being some...
Yeah, well, then I can say that I think that there's some very, very, very serious psychological things wrong with you. I can say that, too.
Well, you'd have to back them up, because I can back up mine.
Well, I can back up mine.
Like what?
Well, I'm not going to get into that. I'm just saying, if you're going to say, well, it's just my opinion, well, I can have an opinion about you.
What? What? Hey, Jeremy, if you say this, I'll say that. So, meh. I mean, really, you're gonna threaten someone that if they state their opinion on what they think happened within their case that happened to them, then you're going to allude? At least if I'm hearing this correctly and I'm interpreting it correctly, I'm going to allude that you're just crazy. And it'll be the truth. We're talking about hybrid IMs. I'm just going to keep repeating this throughout the show. Because it's going to get deep and convoluted, but I want everyone to stay rooted in the fact that this is all stemming from hybrid-based instant messages on a computer, words on a screen, that an adult male should be able to go, fuck off, leave me alone, whatever, and continue on. No, that's not what happened here. So there we have, right there, sounds like the first veiled threat to me.
I mean, I hope it would be a real opinion backed up by, because my opinion is real.
It would be.
It won't be.
I mean, the fact that I think that... a hoax is not a sign that I'm, psychologically ill. It's a view.
I can make there. To me, it was warning flags all over the place. It was such. Well, I'm not going to go into.
Well, the first time I ever said to you,
and I won't go into the professional advice that I've gotten from others as well.
Yeah, I've also got professional advice from others on myself and on you. And and the professional advice that I've had on myself is that I am psychologically normal, which fits in with what Jade, who was my therapist for 10 years, and me questioning that whether the I am is a hoax is not a sign of mental illness. It's just a sign of someone thinking normally and coming to a view.
Opinion. That's your opinion.
I think that's actually everyone's opinion who is hearing this.
Well. Now let's state the obvious here. Warning flags all over the place. Well, if there were warning flags all over the place, Dr. Jacobs, why were you not referring this woman to a competent, qualified therapist?
Ding, 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 ding.
I mean, God damn it. You're going to continue on and spend 2 years in this with someone who you feel has warning flags all over the place that they've got a serious mental condition. I mean, that's unbelievable. And as far as I can tell, the fact that when she says, well, what would you say? I'm not going to get into that. Yeah. Way to stammer on that one. And you're being recorded.
Right.
Really? You're going to play it like that? I'm not going to tell you? Yeah, I don't think you're going to tell her because you don't know. You need some time to figure something out. That's what that sounds like to me. That's my opinion.
Now then, let's
the first time I ever raised that directly with you was the day before we stopped working.
That was the final straw. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what did me in. If it had been just that, maybe not. But I won't go. I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to suck me into that again. Now, you want to do a joint statement about why it is that your the record was taken off my website and put on a different website.
Okay, what I've got here is I've written a list of things that I think I need to address.
Okay.
I need to address why we ended our working relationship. We need to address my sleep emails, which you believe the last time I spoke to you are hybrid emails, which I believe I probably wrote in my sleep. I have to disclose those, so we're going to have to say something about that. And we're going to have to talk about the IM, because the IM referred to me and my hybrids and the threat to you from my hybrids, so I have to address that. And we'll have to address the issue of the hybrid threat, that you think it's credible, that I don't, and that sort of thing. We're going to.
Why do we have to address these things? What is the point?
Because it's enmeshed in my case. I can't talk about my case.
Well, I'll tell you something. It's enmeshed in your case also. You're not talking about him and why you got
enmeshed in my case.
It's enmeshed in your life.
Well, and people get to...
You've gotten off your record, and now you're going into peripheral areas. And that's the first thing I said to you last time we talked. Why does the reader need to know this? It doesn't know anything about you other than what happened to you. The record is a record of your unusual experiences.
Well, the thing is, David,
that happened personally to you.
Yeah, and that happened to me. You told me that my hybrid had gone over to place and that had made contact with hybrids, and that they were giving you a warning that they were extremely dangerous and concerned about security. That directly impacts on my case. You're talking about my hybrids and my case. I can't get away from that.
Well, we don't know whether it impacted or not. All I know is that after that warning, there was never another email from you, interestingly enough.
Go ahead.
What? She can't... Why do you have to go into these things? Gee, I don't know. They were about my case. I don't know. They were about my working relationship with the guy investigating my case. I don't know.
Jeff.
Gee, why would I want to bring those on? They're not important. No, they're not important because it seems to me that he knows he acted foolishly and doesn't want that to be brought out to the public. That's what it looks like to me. You?
I wish I could see differently. I wish Jacobs would say something publicly so I could see something differently.
I wish he'd come on this show and talk to us about it. I mean, I mean, right now this is all we have to go on, and I got to say, it doesn't look too good so far. And we've barely gotten started here tonight. I mean, this does not look good. And it'd be different if this were emails or something that could be shuffled around and reinterpreted different ways. We're hearing the actual conversation. We are sitting here listening to this, and he's saying you don't. Why do you have to talk about that? How could she not talk about that? It's part of her case, for God's sakes. I mean, that to me is just absurd. And you're going to make yourself look bad? How is that making her look bad? No. It's making you look bad. Because, I don't know, grab your octagonal dice and throw it across the board. Okay? Jesus.
Well, that warning happened 2 days before we finished working together.
No, I'm sorry, not after the warning. Sorry for using that word, but after the so-called get-together, which you believe never existed, there was never another email from you. But that's neither here nor there.
The fact is that I have to address it because it's part of my case.
Well, if you feel that you have to address it, there's not much I can do.
Well, then we can work something out together.
What I'll do is I can take a look at what you write, and then I can add my own stuff. But this is it's I just don't. I'm just not sure that that's a good idea. I'm not going to be participants in my own harm.
Well,
you are hell-bent.
No, I'm not
hell-bent.
No, I am hell-bent on trying to find a nice way that we can work through this without either of us getting hurt. That's what I said in my last call, and that's why I'm putting myself on the line again here. I'm hell-bent on trying to get out of this horrible situation in a way that hurts everybody the least. And I hope you can hear that.
He can't hear that, Emma.
Right.
And now let's go to another clip.
I need to talk about my stress that I went through, because obviously my experiences in that time...
Yes, you have to talk about your stress, and you have to... Right.
And I also need to talk about why I became so stressed, which means I have to talk about the tactics, because those tactics were what did it.
Well, if you're going to be doing all that, and it's going to be in your words and all that.
No, it's not going to be in my words. This is what I'm saying. This is a list of things that I feel I need to address, and I'd like to work out something with both of us that we can both address these things, and anything else that you want to address in ways that's happy with both of us.
That would be good. I will accept an email. I'm not going to do this over the phone. I'll take a look at what you've got to say. It's to me, it's completely unnecessary for your situation. I mean, if I feel the need, I can write about Emma also, and I can write from my point of view, which might be very different than your point of view. And what would be happy for me is if you just leave this material out.
Well, I can't
That is
do
not.
That.
Well, then what?
I mean, the fact is, David, that my material was on your website with a forward by you and being backed by you. If I just put up a website without any explanation separately, I may as well pin a sign saying David Jacobs no longer supports my case, and therefore there must be something seriously wrong with it. So I have to, in full fairness to me, explain the situation. And I can't explain the situation without going into these things, because they're enmeshed in my case.
Yeah, I know, and I know that you consider the situation to be eminently rational and normal from your point of view, and that your ideas and your theories are absolutely correct, or at least pretty correct, and that ultimately you were victimized by all this and all the rest of that stuff. And I know that that's what you believe, and you told me that 9 million times.
Well, actually, I think it's quite complex, to be honest.
Okay,
I think that I was hurt by the situation. I think you've been hurt by the situation. And I think it's just a horrible situation.
It has been a horrible situation. Absolutely. It's been a horrible situation. Absolutely. That part I can agree.
And I can also tell from the way that I have to explain, because you don't understand my situation, and you talk to people like you obviously talk to Bud, and if I don't say what has happened to me and put my situation, then I'm just sitting back and letting you say my situation, and you're in that field and you don't even understand my situation, let alone have any sympathy with it, and I can't just do that.
Well,
and you must understand
first of all,
as well.
Your record was about the events that happened to you by the aliens. This is what you were writing your record about. This is what everything was about. This is what you've been writing about since we started back in the year 2001 or whatever. And the fact is that now you are veering off into something to do with why it's no longer on the website anymore.
I have to explain that.
Well, you think you have to explain that.
Of course I have to. David, you're not a stupid man. If I don't explain it, they will. It'll look like you no longer support my case, which you don't, and I have to explain that.
Oh, well, I do support parts of your case, but you've made it impossible for me to use it. Maybe I can use some aspects of it. Maybe I can use something here and there. But each time there'd have to be an asterisk saying that there's a problem here, and I'd have to explain what the problem is. And because that's just the way I have to do it. I mean, I just have to be honest, as you're saying. But I'm not going to be. It depends on what you do as to how honest I am and how much the audience needs to know.
Are we going to be dishonest?
What?
Word of the night. Did he just say that on recording? It depends on what you say as to how honest I'll be. What?
He didn't mean it that way.
Okay, right. Not only is it, I mean, you've got a woman there who, for all intent and purposes, as far as I can tell from a recording, is strictly trying to work something out to make everything agreeable. She does seem to be acting in such a way as to be non-threatening and trying to work out something that they mutually can agree on that is okay with both of them.
And the only reason they keep going in circles and circles is because he doesn't trust that, or he doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
Something.
Right.
But it's all him. I mean, if he would just say, okay, Emma, let's sit down and write this together.
Right.
They'd be fine. Instead, he starts to do that every time. He's like, yeah, okay, that's good. But if you say something I don't like, I'll have to respond, and you're not going to like it, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Right. Right.
What?
And isn't it interesting that in a previous clip that we heard of the same conversation, this is all off of recording number 8, I believe.
Yeah, on her website, it's audio clip 8.
Right. So earlier in this discussion, the warning flags were all over the place. Okay? But yet, I do support parts of your case. Really? Because if you think something's wrong with someone, how can you support any of their case? I mean, ultimately, at that point, you refer them to a therapist and you start over. I mean, you can't assume or say the warning flags are all over that there's something seriously wrong here, and then turn around and say, well, there's parts of your case I could use, but I'd have to put an asterisk with a little bit of a footnote on that, well, there's a problem here, and the problem is, she's mental. Oh, well, that means that everything you've just written in this book or this paper or whatever is worthless because this has come from someone with a mental problem. Like I said, it's starting to get into multi-layers here, and we all have to keep in mind this is about IMs from the hybrids.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does read like a bad Serpo novel, doesn't it, folks? I mean, really. Only this is even worse because this is real people. And one of them has been obviously somewhat, I won't say mentally damaged, but psychologically damaged. Obviously, she's very upset. You'll hear later on how upset she gets. But depending on what you say is how honest I'll be. I mean, doesn't that really say everything do we need to hear any more really at this point? I mean, you're hearing someone say, depending on what you say, I'll be honest to that point. I don't know. Again, we're only getting one side of this here. Emma, we don't know what she did beforehand that may have made him think or say these things. We're hearing this conversation, Jeremy, and again, I have to point this out. What interactions I've had with her in email, the fact that we know her name, she's been very cooperative with us, and I have no reason to believe that she's being deceptive in any way. But what we do have to put in a little footnote here in our discussion is that we don't know about prior conversations that may have dealt with this very same topic. Mm-hmm. I noticed that Dr. Jacobs says at one point, I'm not going through this. I'm not getting into all this with you again. This is obviously a multiple part where she had come at him with this stuff before.
Right.
But at least in this conversation,
she later
she
says, I tried to say all this stuff last week. The last conversation we had.
Right.
She makes it sound like it was this same tone of trying to come to an agreement.
Well, but what I'm getting at here is dealing with in factual data. We don't know what that conversation was like. We don't know what was said. We don't know how she approached him. So he may be on the defensive for a reason, and we have to also include that part of this, and that is an unknown to us right now. We don't know how she has approached him with this before. Once again,
when the context is this is all about that he got fucking scared about some IMs from alleged hybrid aliens, then the ridiculousness of either of those propositions comes to the fore for me,
Well, that's why I keep reiterating that notion. I mean, but even still, we still have, despite the fact that the man was scared by some words on a computer screen that were misspelled by advanced beings, we have
keep
to,
it real.
Yeah, we have to keep this into a certain amount of organization in looking at data, and the facts are facts. We don't know how this has been approached before. All the other stuff notwithstanding, he may have a point there. We just don't know because we haven't heard from him.
Mm-hmm. You said that
I've said this before. I'm going to repeat it again. You do not have the requirement to say absolutely everything. Everything you do say has to be honest. But you do not have the requirement to tell absolutely everything. If you do that, then I can also tell absolutely everything from my point of view.
You see, I haven't done anything wrong. You can say what you like, and if you take out what I've told you about my experiences out of context and use them to paint a picture of me as some kind of nutcase, all I will do is put up the experiences in the right context and say this is what David Jacobs did with this material, which I trusted him with.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. I wouldn't do that.
The thing is that I'm prepared to make big compromises. Like with the tactics, I know that you don't want me to mention that you did tactics at all. And from my point of view, I would like to say every single tactic that happened. But I am prepared to go a medium road and say there were tactics undertaken. You did them because you felt that you were under threat. They had a major impact on me, which they did, but then I don't need to go into the details of those tactics.
That is perfectly acceptable. I love it.
Right.
That is perfectly that sounds good to me the way you're putting it now.
Right. So the tactics.
That is an honest statement.
Well, that's all I would ever have done.
That is good. That actually makes me feel better.
There's no need to talk about those tactics.
No.
Don't bring those up. Like the one where I told you had multiple personality disorder.
Or the one where I would tell you lies and the truth, and you wouldn't know the difference because I didn't want them to know the difference. These are the tactics, folks, that they're talking about.
We think, yes. Well, we've been told, yes. I mean, really? Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all.
And what I liked is she said, I haven't done anything wrong. And he says, well, I haven't done anything wrong either.
Well, yeah, you have.
Yeah. Your whole career in ufology has been based on doing wrong.
Yeah,
You're doing hypnosis.
Yeah. I love the way he says, what did he say? You're not qualified to discuss the whole picture here? Neither is he. I mean... it's amazing. I mean, it really is amazing to listen to this and to hear, in one breath, well, then I'm going to say what I have to say, alluding to there are serious issues here mentally with her. And then when she says, well, you're just going to talk like I'm crazy. I wouldn't do that. Okay. Well, what were you alluding to before? You see how back and forth?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, I told you this. I told you this privately, and I maintain that once again we don't know Jacob's side of it. But to me, it sounds like a controlling man who is out of control here. He knows that this situation is out of his control. He's completely nervous about this, and he's doing whatever he can to dominate this situation that is indomitable from his perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no getting control of this. The way you get control of this is to acquiesce and help her write the lesser of evils for her website. So it's like he's his worst enemy here at this point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got a loose cannon out there who could conceivably blow him away. And it sounds, you can tell by the tone of the voice, and you can tell by the nervous laughter and the stammering and stuttering that obviously he knows, man, I've got a big matzo ball hanging out there, and I have no control over what she's going to do. I mean, if you were in that situation, Jared, wouldn't you be much more kind and gentle and accommodating to someone like that? I've never been in that situation in a ufological sense, but I would be very kind and accommodating, and I would listen to what she had to say, and then I would say, okay, well, let's try and work it this way. Let's try and work it that way. I wouldn't be coming at her all the time with this, well, then I'm going to have to write what I write. You know?
Yeah, well, the problem
he
is,
knows that
once
she's
again,
really hanging out there.
the whole issue comes back to, this is about hybrid IMs. It's not as though he can threaten her with, I mean, he's trying to threaten her with, I can always come out and say you're crazy. I can always come out and tell everybody what I think. Except that when you do that, you've then got to say, well, I think she's nuts because these IMs were from hybrid aliens that were trying to attack me.
Right. And he knows that would fly. Right.
That's not going to make her look nuts.
Right.
By any stretch.
Right.
Even if she is. So he's got nothing.
It would have the reverse effect. Yeah.
Then she explains how she wants to handle the IMs, and he says...
Let me just say this. That sounds absolutely reasonable.
Well, that's what I was going to do.
I love it. It's wonderful. That's just fine. That's all. It's more than they need to know, but it's fine. That's just fine. That's essentially what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just fine. That's essentially what happens.
Okay.
Now, obviously there are a million other things that happened, but people don't need to know that. I mean, there's a long series of things that happened, and I don't want to have to write about that stuff. I don't want to have to deal with it. I really don't. And so by saying this nice way you're putting it, which tells the story but doesn't really go into any gross detail, and all the rest of that stuff, and conspiracy theories, and
well, I don't have a conspiracy theory. I believe it's a hoax, and that's not it's offensive to me.
I'm sorry, not conspiracy theories.
I'm really getting really sick of this continual conspiracy theory, paranoia. I am entitled to believe that a case is a hoax without having all that BS put on me.
And you can believe it's a hoax if you want.
Yeah, and I can believe it's a hoax, and I do, and it's offensive. You're just not allowing any space for someone to have a different view, and it's just offensive, and I'm getting sick of it. I've put up with it for months.
It's a different view about a person who helped you.
Well, I believe that she's a hoax, so I don't think that she did help me. But anyway, whatever.
You see, that's where we differ on. That's where I have knowledge and you don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have your view and I have my view. We're back to the same thing.
Well, yeah, that's true, but my view is based on knowledge.
And so is my view. My view is based on looking at it from a distance and putting it together and seeing it doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's your theory.
Do you have your theory?
I've got knowledge that you don't have, and that I'm not about to give you. But all I can tell you is that selfless with you, and the way you're treating her is,
the thing is that I believe that she's a hoaxer, and I believe that she wrote that threat to you.
Yes, and the fact that...
So I don't have that view of her. I believe that she deliberately scared you.
Yeah, and the fact that you could even think something like that by a person who gave so much.
No, because I did not base my view on an emotional, she did my website. I based my view on looking at the facts of the case that they were developing and seeing that they didn't add up. It was an intellectual view.
I know how they...
Some process for me to actually work out that the simple explanation is that she's hoaxing it.
Yeah, that is the simple explanation, and I'm sure that every debunker who ever reads that will immediately seize on
I don't think it would just be debunkers, but anyway.
Well, I'm not saying it's just going to be debunkers. I'm saying every single debunker who seizes on that will use that against me and against you and against... I mean, there's nothing that they can do except use that against both of us.
See, against me.
What do you say to that? I mean, she's supposed to be the crazy one here, right? And she sounds like the sane, rational. She's making the argument that her entire case, her 2 years, her life, and what she thinks is going on is a sham.
Right.
And he's making the case, no, there are hybrid aliens that are out to get me. And it couldn't possibly be a hoax. I know it's your opinion that this woman hoaxed it and that's the easier explanation, but I think the easier explanation is IMs from Zeta Reticuli.
Well, we don't know if it's Zeta Reticuli.
That's right. We need Jacobs to come on and tell us. We don't know the other side of that. We don't know where they come from.
Well, we don't, and he doesn't say where they come from, and he may have ultimately figured out that they didn't come from hybrids, but that they came from a person. But that person may not be this Elizabeth character that's figured into this story, and he may have information that tells him who the individual was who was doing this. Who it could have been, we don't know. My question would be, by listening to this, okay, Dr. Jacobs, you have information she does not. How about you tell her what is the information that she does not have? This is your research subject of 2 years. This is a woman that you spent an inordinate amount of time, and you've admitted that you've spent an inordinate amount of time studying her case, countless hours, and you have information that would be pertinent to her peace of mind, pertinent to her case, pertinent to your work with her and how it ended, but you won't give her that information. I find that to be suspicious at best. That's very strange. And I can tell you that if I was in that situation, I'd be saying, well, here's what I did find out, and here's who it was. And that way she could be armed with some sort of facts too. My guess is whatever the facts are that she doesn't have further incriminates him in some way.
Well, here's the thing. And,
I mean, wouldn't you think that? That's what I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, in another conversation, he says basically that he believes it can't be her because he saw her when she looked like she'd been basically beaten up after an abduction. So, therefore, he believes that she was roughed up by these evil aliens, you know. So, I mean, I don't think that he's, you know, I guess we'll never know until he comes out and says, but I don't think he would make the case that he knows who the hoaxer is. I think he still thinks it's aliens.
Well, and that could be too.
You know, when you have a theory as you do, then all facts and everything that's counter to it and everything every denial becomes simply a part of the evidence that in fact it's happening. And that's why I keep calling it a conspiracy theory wrongly.
No, because
your hoax theory is not falsifiable in your mind.
My hoax theory is falsifiable.
That means that you can never build a case against it.
No, I mean, you can check the apartment that the address that she gave you of a hybrid's apartment. I know that there are lots of points where that thing can be checked and can be seen to be falsifiable.
Let me just say right now, you do not have the facts. I cannot tell you that enough. And you will not accept it. You think you have everything you need for your theory, and you cannot accept the idea that when I tell you straight out and honestly, you are not in command of all the facts. You simply throw that away.
No, I don't. I know that I don't really understand her motive, and I don't try to because I don't want to speculate where I don't know, but I know enough to know that there are serious inconsistencies with it.
Yeah, there are probably inconsistencies here and there. You're going to find what's going to happen.
Big inconsistencies.
Yeah, all right, there's big inconsistencies. That's a matter.
I've never
been able
to tell you because you've never sat down and talked to me about it.
It's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, it's a matter of opinion.
I would like to now relate the second absurdity. So, Jer.
Yes, Jeff?
These hybrids.
Go on.
They have an apartment.
I have an apartment.
Yeah.
What's so outlandish about that? Everyone has apartments, Jeff.
They're hybrids.
Oh, right.
Okay, so that could be checked out, right?
That would be an instance of falsifiability, which he was nice enough to condescend and explain to her.
Right.
But apparently she knew exactly what the definition of that was.
I mean, Jesus. So she now what did she do with the information when it came about the she just said that Elizabeth gave him the apartment number and address of this place where the hybrids were living. And I hear they're filthy creatures. They sleep 12 to a bunk. So
who foots the bill for that apartment? The Greys? Is it the Greys or the Reptilians? I can't
keep paid in qubits. Do you think?
I can't keep my alien rapists straight.
What the frack?
Shall we continue?
Anyway, yes.
What you say is a matter of opinion. Now, if you want to write me an email telling me about the inconsistencies that are different than the inconsistencies you pointed out in the other emails to me, okay, because I can't remember a damn thing you ever say or anybody ever says to me. But the point is that, or what I say to them, as a matter of fact.
And there we have it. God damn, I hope he's got a really good digital voice recorder or a pencil. Because Dr. Jacobs will never remember anything he says to you or anyone, for that matter.
Always the sign of a good researcher.
That's right. God damn it.
Okay, so I've got here that I'm going to write something sort of quite neutral about how we stopped working together because the stress of my stress, the stress of your situation, the stress of the threat, the difference of opinion. I'll just say that in the end we just came to a view that we could no longer work together.
Yeah, right. Or just we both agreed that working together was no longer in our best interest, or something like that, and that would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true.
It's not really true for me. I mean, I felt betrayed because I had put my trust in you that you would help me with the work, and also I felt betrayed that I had told you so many personal things about myself and I relied on you to help me, and I felt betrayed that I couldn't view that my concern that it might be a hoax without being punished for it like that.
You can't imagine how many hours I put in with you, and how many hours I thought about you, and dealt with the situation that you had. I mean, it consumed my life to a large extent, and the only thing that you can get from this is the fact that I betrayed you.
No, it's not the only thing.
That I made you a wreck.
No, it's not the only thing. I mean, obviously.
Then there's no reason to put that stuff in. Like I said, it is true what you're saying.
I mean,
you're talking about stress for both of us, and it got to be too much, and we agreed. That was it.
Yeah, what did he say?
Once again, he's saying you don't have to go into detail. You don't have to give them the facts. Just give them the essence of the truth, which is to say, give them nothing.
Right.
This is the difficult one. I go to explain my stress, and I have to obviously say that I was very stressed.
Yeah.
And
well, see, if you do that, okay, you can do that. I might have to talk about why I was stressed with you, regardless of the IMs, before any IMs were around. Regardless of that, what was happening on this side, that's not something that I want to write about. I really don't want to write about that. I don't want to. It's going to make you look very bad, and it's going to be absolutely truthful.
Like what?
Well, I'm not even going to bring that up. All I'm saying is that you have your version of events, and that there's another version of events too that is truthful. I'm not a liar, and I'm not going to say things that are not true that would make you look not in the light that you look at yourself in.
So there we are, right back to what he said he wouldn't do, which is threaten her with telling people she's nuts or somehow hard to deal with.
Well, or something. I mean, tell him something. I mean, we don't know if it's that she's sick in the head or whether it's something else. I mean, God knows what else it could be. Because, of course, he won't tell her. I mean, there are parts of this that I genuinely think are painful to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is one of the big ones, and what's coming up, actually, as well. But, I mean, there you go. I mean, we've got it again where, she's trying to be open and honest about her perception of the events, and those aren't coinciding with what he wants to be public. Of course, because at this point in the conversation, I think we can all pretty much deduce that the reason that he doesn't want these out is because it makes him look foolish.
But it
makes him
sounds
look
to me,
non-critical.
it sounds to me even dumber than that. It sounds to me like, again, just as soon as they come to the point of agreement, he then throws in the caveat, but if you do, if you do include too much and say too much, then I'll have to say too much.
Right.
It's like, why are you threatening her when you just came to a reasonable decision to go forth with what she had just said she was going to write?
Well, and again, I think it's an empty threat. My question would be, if the warning signs are all over, if I could come forward and say things that are not going to make you look in a good light like you want to be, if all of that was present, that there was a problem, why aren't you referring this woman to a therapist? Why are you dealing with her at all? Why are you not walking away from this and referring her to someone who can help her if that's what you truly thought? Of which, let me make this little a point here and that. He is not qualified in any way, shape, or form, as near as I know, to be able to level any sort of judgment on anyone's mental health at all. So I would, if I were her, I would say, well, you know what, Jacobs, go right ahead. You go right ahead and say what you think. Because after you get done telling people whatever you're going to tell him, whether he's going to say she's crazy or she's got this disorder or that disorder, I'll say, by the way, folks, I've been checked out by a real psychologist who has given me a clean bill, and this man is not a therapist in any form, is not licensed to practice psychoanalysis or psychiatry in any way. So go ahead. That would be my answer. Obviously, she doesn't want to go that route, and I understand why. But these threats, that's going to be the recurring theme throughout all this.
So what you're saying is that I was some kind of horrible person. I mean, why would you have worked with me the whole of 2005 very happily?
If I'm such a horrible person, why would you have worked with me during this
I've never
period?
said that I thought you were a horrible person.
Well, I'm not saying I think you're a horrible person.
You just said that you could write something that was absolutely truthful that would make me look absolutely horrible. I've never said anything like that to you.
Because right. Well, it would, because it would be truthful. I don't think you're a horrible person, but if I were to write it, people would think that.
Well, I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, I've done some horrible things or I haven't.
That's what I think about the way you view me. I think it's just stupid. I think that you're going to make me look like an idiot, like cold, callous, like I have no ability to filter out fact from fiction, and I just blew it all off on you and wrecked your life, as you've told me 100 times already.
Right. Correct.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding,
Right.
ding, ding. Tell me he's won.
Bingo.
You can always tell when a person really knows about themselves by what they say they aren't.
Yes.
And here it is.
Yeah.
You're going to say that I'm all of these horrible things that I suspect I am because that's what I am. I mean, that is when you get really upset about something that somebody says about you. It's 9 times out of 10 because you suspect it's true. That's why it's a sore spot with you. Because you don't like having weaknesses pointed out. Weaknesses of character.
The ability, I don't have any ability to to tell fantasy from reality. Well, yeah. The hybrid apartment, the hybrid threats and IMs and enforcers and, oh my God. I mean, clearly, if you took any of that seriously, if you did, then I'm sorry, you don't have any ability to discern the two. I mean, to become that frightened over an instant message.
If someone came to my door and was like a big hulking, scary guy or crazy or something and said that they were hybrids, that would scare the crap out of me. If they did a magic trick of some sort that was like, now my disappearing act, that would scare me. A phone call would not scare me. An IM would not scare me. An email would not scare me. Those I would just laugh off. Because that's kind of what's normal to do. Well,
because that's what kids do. Kids do that. I mean, when I was hosting chats on AOL years ago, I'd see a strange screen name come into the room, and I'd get I am like, you better be quiet or else. And then underneath of them, they would actually have the balls to put like, how you kind of frame in a chat room, you frame an action or a verb with the colon repeated over and over and over, and then you put like shudder, and then the colons follow it out. So it's like, this is what you're doing at the moment. These people would actually come into the room and go, you better be quiet or else. And then they would have colon, 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 blowing cigarette smoke in your face, colon, colon, colon. You don't take that shit seriously. You boot them, or you whatever. I mean, it's just, it's absurd. It's completely absurd that he's chastising her for saying these things when, in fact, those things, by her account, seem to be true.
How do you say one adult to another, don't worry, I know exactly how you feel. Shh, 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 that's just your opinion. I know how you feel. Come on. No, you're an asshole, and you're condescending. Obviously, you don't know how to feel. Or you'd have a little bit more sympathy for this woman who, presumably, you cared about.
Right. Right.
Unbelievable.
Here's a thing that came up when I ran an experiencer support group, and we didn't do regression or anything like that. We just sat around and talked, basically. But we had two researchers that came in who actually helped me facilitate having these get-togethers at all. So they were an integral part of that. And they would also, I felt they were valuable to have in the mix because they were more versed in ufology in the broad scale than we were. So if someone brought up a particular instance of the shape of a craft or the color or an experience, that we could look at them and go, have you heard this before? And they could say, no, I've never really heard anything like that before, but here's something that's sort of similar. So you'd almost get an independent verification from them because they've studied more of this and talked to more people than you have. But eventually the dynamic in the group came down to, we don't need them here because they're not really helping us. They're just here to get material. They're gaining research from us. They're not really giving us anything as far as help. Now, of course, what help could they have given? I don't know. I don't know that they could have offered any real help for what was going on. But this almost reminds me of that kind of dynamic where he's almost, and this is, again, strictly my opinion, just by listening, is that she's finding out that essentially, for the most part, the time spent on her trying to quote-unquote help her was not really about that, was more about spending time to gain knowledge about something he could write a book on or a paper or a lecture or something to publish on his website. And therefore, she's beginning to feel like an object. She's a thing that which he is gleaning information. She's no longer a person anymore. And I question whether, in his eyes, was she ever a person to be cared for and to be helped and to be guided or to be given guidance? Or is she just, wow, I can really get a lot out of this woman. This is someone I need to spend an inordinate amount of time working with. And I think, I mean, to me, this is what I kind of pulled out of just listening to the tone of the voice and different things that were said, is that I almost think that she's coming to that realization that I was really not a person to you. I was simply an outlet for you to glean information from. And that right there is an extremely hurtful thing to have to realize about somebody that you've known and worked with in this kind of intimate capacity for more than 2 years.
We worked together for 2 years. It was absolutely fine.
That's right. And then we started to have problems. Now, all I can say is that those problems and what happened to us are subject to facts and interpretations. Mine are much different than yours are. And, and that's why you can't just start accusing me of doing this and doing that, and that's why you broke.
Well, what I've done is talk to you with respect about things that have actually happened. All you've done is sort of say, oh, well, I could say the same thing, but you never actually get it down to any facts. And it just, to me, just says that there's nothing there.
Well, you will see. I hope you don't. I don't want you to see, but
I mean, I can't think of anything that I've done to you that you could possibly write that would make me look like some horrible person. All I did was work on my record, which I'd contracted to do with you in the way that you wanted.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can't remember anything else that I.
Let me go back to my original statement. let me go back to my original statement. The I am was part of the situation, and there were many other things that were involved with it as well. That's all I can say, and that's all I'm going to say. I don't ever want to speak about it. I don't want to tell anybody. I don't want to go into this. This is what's called in the United States inside baseball.
Well, I'm the inside. If you're talking to me about what, it's just...
No, but I'm talking to somebody...
functional relating. I mean, it's just ridiculous. If you've got a problem with me or something that I've done...
You put yourself at odds with me. You've put yourself in a situation where you can do damage to me, and therefore I cannot do anything.
I haven't put myself in that situation. I could do damage to you because of the way you behave to me, and I don't want to do damage to you. I'm sitting in this horrible conversation. I had to go through and had to hear that there's letters being sent to me. All I've done is last week ring you up to try and work something out, and then get threats.
The only reason there's letters being sent to you is because you told me that you didn't have email anymore.
What do you mean? I've got an email address. You've got my email address.
You told me a couple of times ago that you no longer had email.
Well,
that's what I told...
I have got email. I've never said that to you. You must have misheard something.
I must have misheard it because you told me you changed your email, you got rid of your email, and you didn't have email or something like that. And I figured, gosh, how can we ever get in touch with you again? And therefore, there was no.
That. I mean, we've been in email contact before.
No, but the last I don't know what conversation
it was about a month ago. You emailed me.
Whenever that was.
And I've only spoken to you on the phone once since then, which was last
whatever
week.
the last time was that I talked with you, and I will tell you when I sent you something here. Hang on a second. I got to go to my sent mail. March.
I think you probably sent me. I think you probably sent me emails later than that because I think
March
it was
11th.
in April. I think you sent me an email in April.
You told me right after that you no longer had email, so that's what I told everybody.
You sent me an email.
Well, I'm sorry, that was a misunderstanding. Believe me, I didn't want to have to go to the post office and mail these letters to you. One is just an email to me that I just printed out, and the other one is this letter from Bud that he told me to send to you. So I would much prefer they just emailed you. But that was my understanding. But then again, No,
I've never said to you that we haven't had. We did email each other quite recently. Hang on, I'll go and get the date. I've got a printout. I'll give you a second. You sent me an email on the 9th of April.
I did?
Yeah.
What did I say? 9th of April.
Just said, I'd sent you an email the week before saying I just really felt sad about how awful things had got, and you just wrote back and said that you felt the same. And
That's true. It is true. I was extremely sad about it. Now let me see here. Why do I have it March 11th?
9th of April.
How could I have done that? It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand that at all. I have nothing here on this computer that says... Well, anyway. Yeah, I'm sure if you've got...
I can remember you saying, why did you close down the Emma Woods account? And so maybe you were thinking about that.
Maybe so. It's possible. It is possible. Yeah. Okay. No, you just see 9th of April 4. Here it is. Yep, absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yep, I just missed it. And it's in another box that I got. Yep. And here's one from March 25th also. Yep.
Is it clear to anyone yet that he really can't remember anything? And not only can't he remember things, but he's getting things all jumbled up and is telling people that emails aren't getting through because she doesn't have an email anymore. They're mailing. I mean, this is just pure incompetence to me.
Well, it's not just incompetence. It's the arrogance and the resolve, to say, I'm right and you're wrong. It's attitude.
Wait a minute. Well, yeah, I don't know. What? I don't know. How did this happen?
This doesn't make any sense.
Not any sense at all.
It doesn't fit into my worldview that I'd be so wrong about something.
Right. Yes.
That can't be. He said in another tape, not anything that we're going to listen to here, but in another tape where he's arguing that he had regressed her to talk about something specific. And she says, no, he never did that. And he basically yells at her and says, yes, we did. Yes, we did. I know we did. And then she says, well, check your records because we had talked about doing it, but we never did it. And then he checks his records and then he says, oh, yeah, I guess we never did. Huh.
There's your basic tenets of research right there. I mean, you've got to know what's going on. I mean, you got to know what's going on. I mean, and I mean, what is this now? The second time in this conversation where I can't remember anything. I can't remember anything anyone tells me. And obviously there's also confusion mixed in with the memory problem that he seems to have. So, I mean,
it's odd that she's tampering with her memories and she's the one with the good memory.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's just, well, you know what? Yeah, I mean, it's happening to her. That's why she knows. I mean, I don't make any, this is not making an excuse for him, but I'm sure that he deals with more people than just her. I'm sure that it can get a little hectic.
Great,
but
then don't be so certain.
Well, right. Well, the bottom line is when you get that busy with people and you get that bogged down with things, you've got to keep notes and you've got to keep some sort of records on people. It doesn't sound like she has a file. Here's my Emma Woods file. Oh, I see here. Yes, this is where she told me that she no longer has email. No. I mean, he doesn't seem to have that capacity to think that way. And so now there's this confusion that adds to the overall picture that this guy is just not a real competent researcher as far as I can tell.
Well,
okay.
I don't know why we're talking about that, but that's the reason why. Anyway, so I gave misinformation. I will tell them that they can contact you directly now.
I don't have my email address.
Can I give the hybrids your email address as well? I mean, should I forward that to them?
Let's record
I'm just trying to say, let's avoid me as the middleman. Let's give the hybrids your email address as well. I'll let them know when I get the next instant message that you do in fact have email, so they don't have to write you paper letters.
Dear Emma, it's me, Hybrid.
You told me that I had to write to the Lucille Scott account.
Was that because of what?
You told me You told me later that it was because in late August I had a big talk to you and I said I can't. Those tactics don't work. I said if I write an email in code or whatever, they're going to know I'm in communication with you because they don't go by email. They go by telepathy on me. And I said, there's no way that I can pretend that I'm not in communication. And then you said, okay, because of that, then you had to, you tried a different tactic, which was to make me believe that it was somebody else's account. And you had to make me believe that because you wanted the hybrids to believe that. Yeah. Because I couldn't hide things. So that was when it started.
Yeah. But you said that I told you things for them. No.
You told me that the account belonged to someone else for them.
No, well, yes, but
and then late in November, I think it was in October, mid-October or November, you went through a great big song and dance about how you were stopping the work and that, and then every day you changed it, and eventually you said, well, I was just telling you those things because I wanted the aliens you wanted the hybrids to believe it, but it wasn't actually the case. And
I don't remember exactly. I don't keep track of all these.
Well, I mean, I did keep track of it because it was happening to me and it was having a big impact on me. And
I just want you to know, Emma, I'm not keeping track of exactly what I'm doing to you. What? And rightly so that she says, well, I am because it's happening to me. Thank God Emma's keeping track. Christ.
I can't stop saying unbelievable, but this is really unbelievable.
Well, yeah.
And he knows this is being taped. He knows this is being taped, and he thinks that what he's saying is okay.
I question whether he remembers that it's being taped. I mean, because let's not forget, he can't remember anything he says to anyone.
True, and he realized that his tape recording didn't work, so maybe he was like, oh, well, guess I'm not being taped.
Right. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, I mean, how can you not keep track of these things? Again, where's the fucking Emma file?
Implanted memory of being multiple personality on Wednesday. Oh, that's not important.
Yeah, let's scratch that out.
Change tactics to block memory so aliens can't telepathically read her. Let's just throw that away.
Right. I'll keep that in my white suit. The upper breast pocket, so that the aliens won't know it's there. Because I don't wear white.
Oh, this is the academic version of Idiocracy. That's what this is. Why come that the aliens can read thoughts?
You like hybrids and apartments too? Dude, you're freaking me out.
It's apparent that you did keep track of these things.
Yeah, of course I did. It was having a massive impact on me.
Yeah, why didn't you just say no?
I was thinking that you were a professor, and it was done under the university, and I've done everything right.
It's not done under the university. It's not done under the university, although I did have you sign a university form because that's a way that they can get at me.
Well, I mean, that's what I took it as. It was, professional research, and, you were safe, and I protected myself and my family, and then all these things were happening, and it was stressing me out massively.
So, and did you tell me that?
Yeah, I told you repeatedly.
And then you stopped. Now, you're also...
The thing is that you also told that... You said he's told me that you had a conversation, and he said you kept emphasizing to him that he had to tailor everything he said to me.
That is correct.
And so
you don't agree with that. You don't agree with that then, even though you'd already told me that they know everything that I'm saying to you. So you didn't agree with me.
Is that it had an effect on me. I'm not a puppet.
Yeah, well, so what's that got to do with the fact that everything we're saying to you is going back to the aliens? I mean, I don't understand. What is your point here?
The point is that those things happened, and they caused me.
Yeah, they did happen, and they happened for a reason that you can easily understand and agree with.
I don't agree with it, but I did understand it, and that is why I cut you slack all the way down the line about the way you were behaving.
Yeah, but I wasn't behaving irrationally. I was behaving irrationally. I was behaving totally rationally to the situation.
You were behaving in a very limited, logical way, directly only with the aliens, but you were behaving in a way that completely edited out the effect on me as a human being, and that's what.
Well, you're probably right. I mean, from your point of view, as I've said before, you should just have cut off ties with me and said, I can't go this route. There's too much subterfuge here.
I should have, but the fact is that I was invested in it. My work was half done. It was on your website. I was working with you. You were the only person who could help me.
That is correct.
I had an open, kind of like trusting relationship with you. You knew heaps of stuff about me. I was depending on you to help me. I couldn't just walk away easily and say, okay, bye-bye.
Well, there is that, and neither could I. And the fact is that we were both locked in this, and I was under threat, and so were you. You were dealing with it better than I was.
No, I wasn't dealing with it better than you were. I mean, I was under
Well, you're telling me I was dealing with it improperly right now. That's the whole point of your talk just now.
I don't think it's useful to say someone was bad or good. I'm just saying that this is what happened and this is the effect.
Well, but you don't have to say that. You have to do is imply that, and that's what you're doing here.
The thing is that I think you take it that way, but it's not how I'm meaning it. I'm saying
if you write this, then I'm going to draw a reply from my point of view, and the reply is going to be
you're back on the attack. You're back on the attack.
No, I'm just saying you can't write what you just said. And if you're saying, well, I'm not going to write that, well, that's different. Then okay, fine, then I understand.
Well, I can't just squash it under the carpet. I have
to say that. Draw a reply.
Well, you see, this is why you don't even listen to what I'm saying. I was about to say, we could actually write it in such a way that works for both of us. I don't know how many times I have to keep repeating it.
If we write it in such a way as we have agreed on the other things to be written, it would be excellent.
Why would you assume that it won't be? You're so defensive, and you just attack me continually. I'm so sick of it.
Well, because you have told me in previous conversations that you must write this, you have to write this, there's no choice, this has to be there, and you just got everybody.
I said last week exactly this. What I'm talking to you now that you actually listened to what I said, it's fine. And that's what I was saying last week.
If that's what you're planning to do to write something that we can both agree upon, that would be fine.
Well, why didn't you just say that last week? You just get on a massive attack. You don't even listen to what I say. You just view me as an enemy, and you just attack me without even hearing what I'm saying to you. I'm just fed up with it. I'm fucking bent over backwards for fucking 18 months.
Well, I don't mean to do that. All I mean to do is to defend myself and to tell you that there are two sides to this story. I can't deal with your side. Obviously, I can only deal with my side.
See, here's what he's not getting, Jeff, by will or by ignorance. He's making it sound like there are two subjective sides to this story. That might be true within the framework of the story, but the story is bullshit.
Right.
And that's the thing that he shouldn't be associated with as the researcher / pseudo-therapist.
Right.
He should be detached from this story, not the center of it.
Not involved in it, yeah. Well, I think this is very hard to play down the middle, judging by what we're listening to. And some people may disagree with this. You may disagree with this. Because this is a kind of a double-edged point here. Or I have to relate this really from both sides of the equation. Number one, I think that when he said to her, okay, we've got to use these tactics, quote unquote. I think knowing what those tactics were, if she did, I think it would have been a real smart move for her to say, no, I don't want to do that. In which case, the relationship at that point probably would have ended, the research relationship. However, like she says, I felt you were the only one that could help me. You were the only one that could help me. He reiterates, yes, I was the only one that could help you. Now, we all know that's simply not true. But now you've also got her that she's agreeing to have these tactics used on her. I can understand why she's invested. She wants to see it through. But at the same time, you've got to know this isn't a good move.
Well, it's more than that. It's that you've got this researcher saying, these alien hybrids you have brought into my life, and they want to get me. I need to protect myself by using you. Cool?
Right. Well,
right? And at that point, she's thinking, yeah, I do have these hybrids in my life that are coming after him. I've got to do something to protect him. This is my fault.
Right, because he, as the Rock, is solidifying that view. See? I mean, that's how it works.
But did you catch the part where he says, you should have just said bye to me long ago?
Right.
And then she says, well, I couldn't because I was too invested in this and you were the only one who could help me. And there was no, and he says, yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah.
Exactly.
So which is it, Dr. Jacobs? Should she have left you or could she not?
Well, I guess his point
he's just talking out of both sides of his mouth to whatever protects his ass here. I mean, that's the whole sort of MO of Jacobs, from what I gather from all this, is whether it be hybrids or a potential lawsuit, cover your ass.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I disagree a lot with what he did, or allegedly did to her in these tactical sections. But the fact of the matter is that we have to ask ourselves, was she a willing participant in those tactics that ultimately damaged her in some way or made her a nervous wreck?
My argument to that would be,
he was the Rock.
Once again,
he was the Rock.
There's a hierarchical environment where he's the protector saying, I need to do this.
Right.
And I'm the only researcher that can help you.
He's
and so trust me. I mean, there's this huge trust issue that all of this is related to.
That's exactly right. And in him being in the position of authority, he was holding, this is what's best, and what is she to do? I mean, yeah, she's going to listen.
Now, unfortunately, he can hide behind the fact that I'm not a professional therapist, and so I don't really have that kind of relationship with you. You should have gone away at any time. But, and this is where I almost want to indict all of psychology, who poo-poos this subject and drives potential abductees or experiencers or whatever away to these non-professional researchers. I mean, it's like driving the Joker to the plastic surgeon in the in the old apartment building. Mirror.
Right. What are they going to load of me? Oop. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess. And for how many years now have I been trying to say that this whole regression thing is not a good deal? Nobody wanted to hear it. Everybody wanted to argue it. And now we're seeing the effects of exactly that operation here in play.
Some douchebag on another message board said, you shouldn't build your whole case on the Emma Woods thing for why hypnosis is bad. I mean, he was agreeing that hypnosis is bad. He's saying you shouldn't build everything upon this case. I'm sorry. I'm not, one, but two, anyone else got these tapes that we can listen to? Now, Emma has told us that there is another man who's stepping forward, at least talking to her, who's remaining anonymous, another subject of Jacobs, who has a similar horror story. So maybe this will start.
We don't have his name.
We don't have his name. We don't know anything about it other than what she told us, which is just that. I don't even know what his story is. Right. My point is I hope this starts a wave of people coming forward and saying whether or not this type of thing was beneficial to them. Because maybe people feel like they can't talk about it openly. They can't harm the reputations of these researchers. Or whatever the situation is. I would love to know the truth about this.
Yeah. Well, it's... how
many other Emma Woods are there out there?
Well, I would say that not only am I surprised that this hasn't happened long before now, but I will make a prediction. Here's my prediction, because I am psychic rather.
Or both.
Whoops. No, I'll make this prediction that now that this woman has stepped forward with this, I will say that I'll bet you I'm not going to say it's going to open floodgates, but I'll bet you we see more and more of this sort of thing coming out of the regression hypnotherapy abduction / researcher community. These kind of things are in wider practice. And I'll bet you that this is, when it's all said and done, I bet you this is going to be mild in comparison to some of the things we do find out later down the line. I think a lot of people want to point out in these recordings that she sounds like a very troubled person.
Wouldn't you be troubled?
Exactly. I mean, I made the point on another message. I just want to read this. I said, well, apparently this individual had said, this kind of troubled person is just the kind of people that these researchers kind of glom onto, but that's another story. And I said, well, no, it's not really another story. In fact, it's all the same story. Number one, you've got no sort of idea of what kind of issues were already standing there when Emma got involved with Jacobs. Were there issues? I mean, obviously she's got a sleep disorder. Was there something else? We don't know that. There may not have been any. But the idea that Jacobs allegedly, implanted hypnotic suggestions of a serious disorder is flat out wrong. I don't care what context that you frame that in, it's wrong. I go back again to, we can reiterate the thing that this is all about hybrid IMs and that sort of thing, which is just silly. But we also have to speak about that a history professor who studies alien abduction and uses a hypnotic tool to retrieve memories, to then publish books on this and to build a case for hybrids and the takeover and all of that. This is a guy not qualified to even talk about anyone having any kind of psychological disorder. I mean, again, there was warning signs all over. Of what? Of what? But he won't say what. Again, he's not qualified to level any sort of judgment as to her mental health. I mean, that should be the sphere that encompasses this whole discussion, is that we've got people doing this, and it's not just Jacobs, it's plenty of other people that are doing this with little or no concern for people, but all the concern on building themselves into an abduction researcher or one of these people who's a qualified person to study this and to study hypnotherapy and to put people under to make them recall this or that. And I see a lot of things. I see a lot of people. In fact, I think you mentioned this person on another message board. And here's something I want to read by them that they just wrote. It says, so we're left with a dispute here that hasn't been resolved yet, and it may never be definitively resolved. And I think that's where it needs to be left at the moment. What I wrote back, or was getting ready to write back, is unfortunately, this is where ufology always fails. Am I right or wrong? That, everybody wants to stand around and watch to see how something unfolds rather than to pursue it to its end. To say it may never be resolved is as good as saying, well, she's nuts, so we'll never know, right? And everyone moves on. This is where, the complete kind of failure that we've seen in 60-plus years of ufology, this is where that comes from. The attention span is about as long as a 1-year-old, and the accountability in it is almost non-existent. So here we've got an opportunity that if all that we're seeing in this case and everything that we're hearing in these recordings is accurate and honest and put forth in a non-manipulated manner, then we're obligated, as this UFO community is, to follow this to its logical conclusion, to hear both sides of this story. But ultimately, I think what we've seen so far has been incredibly damaging to Dr. Jacobs. What this really needs is a full investigation. And for that to start, we need to hear from Jacobs about this. But so far, he's remained completely silent. On the other hand, we've got this research subject, Emma, that has provided more documentation than most UFO cases would, both in a well-organized and coherent chronological order. I mean, the evidence against him right now is just about insurmountable. I, for one, don't see how he's going to climb out of this. To say we've got to leave this where it is at the moment. No, I think we need to pursue this. I mean, this is fucking serious. This is somebody's life we're talking about, and well-being. And like you say, God knows how many more people this has happened to that we don't know about yet. But I'll hazard a guess that we will find out about these people eventually, and probably in short order after this has come out.
Well, maybe it's a time to start understanding my side, and then you'll be able to deal with me a lot better, because I've put a lot of effort into understanding your side of it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I've made a lot of bloody allowances for the way you've bloody behaved. And I just don't want to hear another attack from you. I've had enough of it.
But that's the whole point. You think I have behaved awfully, and I'm not attacking you at all. I have never said to you, I'm going to write something really horrible about you, and you keep saying that to me. I'm not saying that either. I'm going to write something that is truthful, and people are not going to like to read it.
You see, there you say it again. Have I ever said that to you? I've never said anything like that to you. All I said to you is I want to write something that looks good for both of us. That's what I kept saying. And I said it last time, and I've got it on the fucking tape. It's so sad when you listen to it. There's a pathetic woman trying to bloody well make something that works for both of us, and you continually taking offence. David, you've got to come to the party. You can't just carry on like this.
Well, let's see how you write this up, and let's see what it looks like. If you are not fair to both of us, then, and if you paint yourself as the victim of my machinations, I
don't think that you're a machinator. I think that I was a victim of the situation for sure, and I'm prepared to gloss over a lot of the things that happened, and I've said that. I mean, I could go on the internet and say that you made me do a hypnosis session pretending you were, and I mean, you would look like a biggest dick in the Western world, and I would never have done that.
That I have on tape, and that one I could actually easily answer, and if you were to say something like that, it would draw a reply, of course.
Well, the fact is that you told me that, and it's not.
Yeah, I know I did. Yeah, and I remember how we joked about it.
You told me it was a requirement for your protection, and you got an email the night before telling me I had to do it.
All I remember is that
I've got a printout of that email.
Yeah, I know. You shouldn't have those printouts. We asked you to get rid of the email and on your computer, not knowing you had printed out everything.
I told you when I said I said to you, I've kept printouts.
Yeah. We would like it for you to get rid of all the email, because by doing that and not getting rid of all the email, I mean, it would have been quite easy for to print out everything you said and then get rid of all your email. I mean,
apparently she said that she didn't have it in the first place.
Yeah, right, but that's true. She didn't actually. But the point is, she could have been doing it as it went along, and as you were obviously doing.
But I was doing a record, and I kept it because of my record.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to talk about her.
What? Can I give my interpretation of we asked you to destroy the emails?
Go for it.
And this is, again, strictly my opinion based on what I'm hearing. I I told you to get rid of all that stuff that incriminates me. I mean,
all that damned evidence.
Yeah, Jesus, could you get rid of that?
In what context would you have to tell someone to get rid of all those emails? I mean, why would it matter to you? What would about that would matter?
Right.
Other than you don't want records, which clearly is a problem because you don't have a good memory.
Right. So you're asking someone to get rid of all the communications or some of the communications or something that pertains to their case that you worked with them on and you were a part of. We asked you to get rid of those. Who's we, first of all? Who is we? He didn't say I asked you to get rid of. He says we. Who's we?
And then they're talking about this Elizabeth girl, so it sounds like maybe her. It's not 100% clear, but it's like 99% clear.
Right.
Or is it 100% clear?
Right. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered things here. We need Dr. Jacobs to come and answer these on our show, which again, we're extending the invitation again. We will not go at him with malice. We will allow him completely to tell his side of the story, but we've got questions that have to be answered here. I mean, that's the facts. But to ask somebody to destroy emails, that's an immediate red flag for me. There's my flags all over the place. There's a flag for you. Why would you ask somebody to destroy emails unless it somehow damages you? I can't think of any other reason. Maybe the hybrids in the apartment A1, they didn't want them to get a hold of them. I don't know. I mean, the bottom line here is if you got hybrids threatening you, all you've got to do is go down to 7-Eleven and pick up some Haagen-Dazs strawberry and send it over to their apartment.
It's true. Everyone knows they love strawberry ice cream.
Yeah. That's a joke.
Sadly, this isn't.
The point is this, that, and I cannot emphasize how distressed she is. But the point is that if we can work out a situation where there's a certain equanimity here, where there was a clashing of situation whereby I felt I was under assault and needed to have a certain amount of cover, and you took, you did not feel that was appropriate. Okay, that's fine.
Well, that's not what happened. I did feel that it was appropriate, and I went along with it as much as I could. And it was.
But then you didn't.
I didn't, because you weren't factoring in my situation and your tactics, and you were putting me in a position where I was actually being hurt by them. And in the end, I had to actually speak up, and then I became the enemy.
Is that what I did when you said you can't do the Lucille Scott thing anymore?
No, that was the first time you didn't. The first time you didn't actually. You wrote back a nice email, and I believe that. After that, you did, and you told me I was in an adversarial position, and how could I do this, and I should have gone along with everything, and I mean,
well, that was after the break. That was after the breakup.
No, that was in November when you said you wanted to take a break. You just attacked me. And I was saying to you...
Well, you refused to take a break, as I remember.
Well, actually, what I actually said to you was that what I couldn't cope with was the fact that you kept changing it every day and then you were just telling me things so that the hybrids would believe it. And I said to you, I can't take that. It's not treating me as a human being.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
we never did take a break. And we acceded to your wishes and never did take a break. I hope you put that in.
The point was that you were using me as a pawn. You were telling me one thing and then telling me another thing.
Trying to protect myself from your group. And
without thinking of the effect on me. You could have worked out something that worked for both of us, and that was where you felt
it would have been hard to do after you told me that every single thing that that I said to you went to them. I mean, you had me in a terrible bind, and it was just a situation that came up that way. And
I think most people would realize that using someone's brain as a pawn, particularly when they're an abductee and them dealing with the phenomenon themselves, would be actually quite psychologically abusive. Most normal human beings would actually realize that, particularly when I was telling you how much that was hurting me.
See, I have to throw you under the bus because they're after me. Sorry, Emma. Right? I mean, am I hearing this wrong? I'm right? I mean, I'm throwing you under the bus because they're after me.
And she was going along with it for a while until it just became too much.
Right.
Until the tactics were just too much. And somehow that's bad.
Right. I mean, she allowed it. And I mean, again, I understand it to a point, but again, she allowed it. And now she wants to talk about that. And feels like she has to explain that publicly. And he's saying, no, you don't. No. Don't say that. Hell, if you're going to go so far as to take, hybrid IM seriously, then wouldn't it be a great story to say they threatened me and Dr. Jacobs said we can't work together anymore? I mean, what's the problem, right? Oh, that's right. He believes hybrid IMs are coming to him and they're going to hurt him.
Well, and he's also believing her. Apparently, she's telling him they can get to you through me or something, words to that effect.
Right.
And he's taking that at face value. I mean, there's a lot
isn't
of
there
face value going on here, which is the thrust of our show of let's not take this stuff at face value anymore.
Right. Well, isn't there also a bigger thing going on here? I would love to have Dr. Lilienfeld on with us right now because I bet you he could tell us what kind of situation it is where suggestion, which I think, if you want to call the hybrid IMs or any communications, electronically with alleged hybrids, which we know is absurd. I'm sure people out there will disagree with the notion that it's absurd, but it's absurd. Come on. That the suggestion that they're after you would then become so ingrained in the conversation or so ingrained into the situation that both parties believe it to be true. I mean, is that like a tandem delusion of some sort? What really could that be? I'll put it this way. There have been cases that I've been on that I've gotten so involved in that I almost had that kind of effect at times, that where I almost thought that some weird little coincidence may have been related to the case I was working on, in that I felt watched or I felt like something was, when in fact, really it was nothing. But I was able to take that step back and go, no, come on now, that's a little ridiculous. Whereas I think there's a point where you can fall over that edge and go, this is real. This is all real. This is all really happening. And I guess, I don't know, it's him being the authority and her being in the subservient position. She's going to take what he says. This is true. This is what's happening. I wonder why it took so long for her to realize that this is ridiculous. This doesn't add up. This is a hoax perpetrated on us by someone. Let's leave Elizabeth out of the equation.
I think the question is, why doesn't he ever come out of that? I think it's pretty damn good that she did. I think that she still maintains that she's had a lifetime of these abduction-type experiences.
Weird
right?
stuff,
and she has other family members that have had weird stuff happen to them.
Right.
So I think I think we've already answered your question in these shows by saying this is what happens when somebody who has this in their lives goes to see somebody who has an answer for it.
Right.
And then that answer becomes their answer. So once his answer becomes her answer, that there's this evil plot by aliens to take over the Earth. They just feed off each other. It just becomes this snowball.
Yeah. I just wonder what that is psychologically, that what name that there is. It seems like there should be a name for that. Like,
I think it's called fantasy prone, and I think it's what Dr. Jacobs suffers from.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also let's not leave George Hansen out of this mix,
right?
Because here we have what I always thought was a pretty intelligent man. I mean, obviously, is an intelligent man to a point, but of course, when it comes to this stuff, clearly he's lost his critical thought. And that kind of element is definitely figuring into play here. But
this is what happens when intelligence meets the arrogance and the self-assuredness. I'm always right. It's always that I'm always right until proven wrong, and then you just blow it off like it was nothing. I didn't just get all uptight about that. That was nothing. No big deal.
Right.
It's like bully, and then proven wrong. Oh, okay.
Right.
So I think that's the kind of world that he has set up for himself, where I am right. This theory is right. All of this is right. So you think there's no hybrids? You're delusional.
Right.
So he may be intelligent, but I mean, I've always wondered about that compartmentalized intelligence, and that extends to religion or any sort of illogical or unfounded thing that people believe in. on one hand, but then can go to work and be a scientist or a philosopher or a mathematician or whatever, do some, something, business leader, something that society looks up to as a smart person or whatever, but they have an unfounded belief in something. I've always wondered how that can be, but the answer is that humans do that,
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I'm just curious how two people can become so embroiled in this, and it is. I mean, let's really be straight to the point here. This is very X-File-ish in its capacity to frighten and the espionage-ish type feel to it. It's got that level of excitement to it that I guess would just draw in those people who are not.
Well, if you wanted to play shrink to it, you could say, okay, again, it's the hierarchical structure. It's like, here's the guy who is adamant about what he's doing, and he's telling you that only he can help you, but he's not a therapist. He's not there to listen to her story as it is. He's there to incorporate it into what his preconceived notions of what's going on. And so she's the subservient one in this relationship going, yes, dear, okay, that makes sense to me. That gives me an answer. And maybe there's even a little sense of relief that you've now got an answer, and it's you and David Jacobs against the world. Right. These hybrids are after you, and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
Honestly, I'm more amazed that she came out of it and woke up and went, wait a minute, something's wrong here.
Yeah, I think that shows some character on her part for that. But it's just, it's pretty obvious she was as into it at the time as he was. So it's. And I'm not placing blame either way, but certainly, like you say, he's in a dominant position in that. I guess she's going to believe what she's told from him being the authority, him being David Jacobs. So there's a certain amount of celebrity there to somebody like her, I would assume, who definitely would have heard of him or seen him on TV or read one of his books or whatever. But it sounds like they were both just into this little sphere of fantasy that just ultimately damaged both of them.
I wonder if it had been if she had gone to him and instead of saying, "Can you help me?" and him saying yes, if she had said, "Can you help me?" and his answer, the real honest answer would have been, "What I will do is mold your testimony to what I think is already going on, and if you don't like that, then there's something wrong with you, or maybe we shouldn't work together."
Right.
That would have been the honest answer.
Yeah.
Not yes, I can help you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here to hear you. I'm here to listen. No. I'm here to tell you what's going on.
Everything was done for a reason, and when you couldn't do it, I said, okay. When you couldn't do this, I said, okay. If you couldn't do that, I said, okay. I didn't yell at you for anything, and I'm sorry if you took things like that. That's not my memories. That's not my mind. That's not the way I am. The point is that, you are, as I said, you're in a position to harm me.
And you're in a position to harm me, and I've never done anything to you.
That is correct. I've never done anything to you other than try to help you and try to help myself as well.
Well, you have actually hurt me a lot with the situation that you were in with me, and the things that you did to protect yourself hurt me an incredible amount. And I think that is where the big sticking point is that you just will not recognize that.
I just want to make the point that one of the things that I often hear, and the reason I didn't want to make this about her, is, maybe she's jealous of this Elizabeth person. Maybe he's giving more attention to this Elizabeth person, and so now she's out to destroy him, which I think is born of sexism, and we'll be talking a little bit more about sexism later. But more to the point, it doesn't really matter why she is coming out of the delusion that hybrids are after him and her. Again, what matters is him, because he is the researcher. He is the authority figure.
I can't say that I did this on purpose to hurt you.
I don't think
and I never wanted to hurt you.
I've never said you did it on purpose to hurt me.
Yes, but what you're saying is that what I did hurt you. But what I'm saying is there's a difference here. Because what I did, you felt hurt you.
Yeah, and also it's not just that what you did was normal and that I just, for my own abnormal reasons, got hurt by it. What you did was harmful to me. It wasn't normal behaviour. Okay, you may have had pressing reasons why you did it, and you may have felt it was logical, but it was very abnormal behaviour, and it was harmful to me.
You're not putting it in context.
I am putting it in context. The context was that I was an abductee working with you, that I trusted you, and I believed that you were there for me to help me, and then all of a sudden you're doing all these things to me.
And you're right. I was too nice. I should have just broken off from you immediately a long time ago. That's what I should have done. But I couldn't bring myself to do that.
Well, you should have
I was constantly trying to figure out ways to work around. I was trying to figure out ways to work around it so we could continue to work together, and everybody was safe and everybody was happy, etc., etc. And that was my problem. You're right. I should have just broken off from you. I mean,
no, you should have just taken my situation into account and not just viewed me as a pawn.
No, with my situation into account, that means I should have broken off with you altogether.
Well, if you should have broken off with me, you could have done it in a humane way. You could have a terrible position. I know this is really upsetting for you. The thing is that you never did anything like that. You just hit me with one tactic after another.
Answer this again.
Anyway, I can't either because I know that you can't hear it. But the fact is that this is a real difficult one because I can't just put up there that I got stressed just out of the blue.
And then I felt that I was under attack, and that the two situations clashed, and that we agreed not to work together. Then you continue with your record. I mean, with whatever is happening to you, that's okay. That's fine. That's good. Or you're veering off into areas that are private areas.
Now we fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, we all did the best we could. There aren't any villains here.
That's what I keep saying.
Yeah.
I need to think of how to explain that.
Right. If you just want to write it in such a way that I can agree without having to feel that I must write a reply to this because this is simply
you're just attacking me. There's no
I'm not attacking you.
That.
I'm not attacking you. I'm telling you what my situation is.
No, I'm not sitting here saying I'm going to write a thing saying all those stupid things that you did. I've never said that. But that's what you're saying to me now.
Well, if you write the stupid things that I did, I will have to. You see, you even by saying that, there's an implied threat.
No, it's not it. I'm saying this is how you're talking to me. I'm trying to use an example to see how it feels to be on the receiving end of it. You don't need to talk to me like that.
That people don't need to know what your thoughts were at the time and what my thoughts were at the time. Well, if you write anything like that, obviously you'd have to write my side of it and how I felt and what was happening on this side, and that's the side you don't really know all of, and you really don't have to know all of it. I mean, it should, it shouldn't matter to you ultimately. The only thing that should matter to you is my relationship to you, which turned out not to be optimum as this thing went along.
Hardly optimal. Yeah.
He's telling her what she should be concerned about.
Right.
You shouldn't care about this. You should care about that.
Well, here's the part where where I'd like to postulate a thought.
Go ahead.
As you get through this tape, this becomes less about the tactics used, which is her point. The tactics hurt her. She felt she was used as a pawn. She felt like she was effectively thrown under the bus. I think it was at that point in the discussion where I said, okay, he thought he was under attack. He thought he was under threat by hybrids.
Using I am, that is correct.
Right. But I think at this point, do you think he's come out of the fog as well and is saying, God, wasn't I foolish to have done these things and to use these tactics when none of this has any basis in reality? Do you think that he's actually also coming out of the haze and saying, oh my God, what have I done here?
No, what I hear is him going back and forth, constantly saying, yeah, just trying to hurt her feelings by saying, yeah, I should never have worked with you to begin with. You're right. I never should have.
Yeah.
Because that's a gotcha. It's another gotcha moment.
Well, I don't know.
Earlier he did say there are some good points to your case.
Right. I'm not saying it was anything that was directly said in this particular part of the clip, but I think it was at this point, it occurred to me, I'm thinking, what if they were both involved in this elaborate fantasy? Emma backed out of it and said, oh my God, look what I've allowed to happen here. Look what I've bought into, and look what's gone down as a result of it. I've allowed this man to do these tactics, and these tactics have hurt me. But what if at the same time he has taken a step back and has said, "Oh shit, none of this was really. We got a little too fantasy prayer. We got a little too free in our credibility department." And now he realizes that what he has done is not right either, because it's been based on nothing. It's been based on no evidential circumstance whatsoever. You could maybe understand this to a point if he was beaten up in his parking lot by some weird-looking people that were 7 foot tall. Then, oh, wow, well, okay, maybe you could get your head around this a little better. But the fact that it's something as incidental as electronic communications, maybe at this point is where, or maybe sometime after all this went down, maybe he stepped back and said, that was ridiculous. Why would I ever buy into that? I mean, everybody takes a step back sooner or later.
Oh, I hope
and
so.
I have to wonder if he didn't take a step back and go, God, what have I done now? And what is she going to say? Well, how have I affected her now? I did use her as a pawn. And a pawn for what? For this? What was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just offering that as a maybe. I don't know. God knows I can't know anybody else's mind, but it's just. I think it was at this part where I was listening to this the first time that occurred to me, that I have to wonder if he isn't stepping out of the fog, or had already stepped out of the fog at that point and said, "What have I done?"
It's possible. It's a great question, and hopefully he will answer it.
If you write it up in a way in which we can both agree, that's fine.
Well, I mean, you keep saying that, but I mean, your sort of view is just don't say anything. But if I don't say anything,
that would be absolutely the correct view, because people don't need to know how victimized you were and how horrible I was, and from your point of view, and how everything fell apart and you were just an emotional wreck and all the rest of the stuff. I don't think people need to know that. It's going to make you sound very, very odd.
No, do you see that you're back to the belligerent, aggressive way of
thinking? I'm telling you that.
I can't think.
I'm telling you that for your own good. It's not going to make you sound like a credible person if you start saying things like that. It's going to, but, I mean, I can't.
David, this is just ridiculous. If I sit down and put down every tactic that you got me to do and everything that you said and did to me, you will look like a fucking bloody idiot.
Yeah, I might.
And everybody will understand why I became stressed by it. Everybody, any normal human being will understand it. And the whole point of me sitting here, I could do that. And the whole point of me sitting here is because I don't want to do that.
Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding.
Tell her what she's won.
You are correct, ma'am. You are correct, ma'am. That is correct. Yes. Yes, exactly.
I mean, do you get the sense that he doesn't believe that? I don't. I think he knows that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And see, this goes back to my point. He comes out of the fog. He realizes, holy crap, I've been bamboozled. Maybe he knows by who. I don't know. And if he says, okay, I'm bamboozled. Okay, how can I fix this? Whoops, I can't fix this. The damage is done. There is no way out of this other than to say, I practiced poor judgment. I practiced poor credibility. I didn't think critically. I allowed myself to become embroiled in a fantasy that I then imposed on my research subject because she was looking to me for guidance, and I fucked up, and now the damage is done. Well, that's a great way to end your ufological career. And he doesn't want to see that happen, along with opening himself up to all sorts of other problems that may occur as a result of that. So that's my take. I mean, that's my opinion on what I'm hearing. I mean, again, until he comes forward, we don't know. And I would hope that he would come here and talk to us about it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I could write a report about you as to why you're no longer on the website that would basically do the same thing to you. And I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that.
Why am I not on the website? Why am I not on the website? What have I actually done? You've never actually ever come down to anything. It's just an empty threat.
Because that is my own personal life and what I know and what I think, and I'm not about to attack you for anything like that.
Well, you just are. I mean, you're telling me to write something awful. I mean, what the hell have I done?
Well, I'm not going to go into that. As I've said over and over again, I'm not going to go into that situation. But you'll just have to say that I'm not telling you that for propaganda purposes. I'm telling you that there are two sides to this story. You seem to think that there's only one side. Yours.
You see, it's just, you haven't heard anything I say, anything. How many times have I told, I know your side. How many times? If I didn't know your side of the story, I would have gone to Temple University and made a complaint about what things that happened. They hurt me so badly and caused me such pain that I would have gone to the university and made a complaint about you. And the only reason I didn't is because I actually do understand your side of it. And so I'm sick and tired of hearing you say that to me.
I understand your side of it as well. I do understand your side of it. You felt put upon by me, and what I was doing in order to evade your people's wrath was destroying you. And you're saying I didn't realize it at the time. And it's a situation that I found myself in, that I was playing duck and cover, and I was trying to deal with the situation as best I could in a very unprecedented situation that has never occurred before. And we both did the best we could.
Emma, if you can hear my voice, please go to Temple University. Please file a complaint. It's so funny because she's saying, I'm not going to file a complaint because I understand why you did what you did. But even so, I mean, I understand why a child molester who was molested as a kid grows up to be a child molester. That doesn't mean I don't tell the cops when he molests somebody.
Right, yeah. Well, I think for this week we're going to have to leave it there because I believe you have another angle on this whole thing that we'd like to get to before the show has to wrap up at 3 hours.
Yeah. All right.
But once again, I'd like to reiterate that what Dr. Jacobs says is true within the recording that we've been listening to this show, is that we do only know one side of the story. And what you've heard tonight is basically our editorial / commentary on what evidence is that Emma has presented to us. There may be things we don't know. There may be parts that we haven't heard. And certainly, Jeremy and I have not been over the entire amount of what she's had to present. I mean, we've been over quite a bit of it. But I think this conversation, which is recording number 8.
From her website, which is www.ufoalienabductee.com. That's all one word, ufoalienabductee.com.
So, again, we only know one side of the story. We're hearing hers, but boy, howdy, there's a lot in there. And, again, we'd sure like to be able to have Dr. Jacobs on the show to address these things. But so far, in my opinion, it doesn't look good. But, again, to reiterate, this has been our commentary, our opinions only. Take them for what they're worth with the information that we have so far. We can't really base any conclusions or make any factual statements on anything yet until we know both sides of the story, nor should anyone else for that matter.
Now I'd like to turn our attention to UFO Watchdog. For those of you who don't know, is an organization that has a Hall of Fame and a Hall of Shame, and they have Dr. Jacobs in the Hall of Fame. Now, I guess I would argue at this point that no hypnotherapist should probably be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Maybe John Mack, I don't know. I'd like to know more information on why he did hypnotherapy and all of that. But even he came to the conclusion that all of this stuff was more metaphorical than literal, so presumably he wouldn't be implanting anything literal in the minds of the people that he did therapy on, but that's another issue for another time. David Jacobs is in their Hall of Fame. Someone who had listened to our show had actually brought it up to Gene Steinberg, who runs this UFO Watchdog, along with Michael, I'm going to mispronounce his name. It's either Schuler or Schuyler. It looks like Schuler, but I think it's pronounced Schuyler. In any event, who cares what his name is? He's a douche. So these guys run this UFO Watchdog into the ground. And someone had brought up the Emma Woods thing and said, gee, shouldn't he be taken out of the Hall of Fame? And Steinberg's reaction to that was, just show me the facts, show me the facts, show me the facts. And I got on there and I said, Gene, why don't you actually go look up the facts because you're UFO watchdog. You can just do a Google search. Well, that's not the facts. You're not showing me the facts. Email them to me. I'm like, Gene, I'm not going to do your job for you. You go look them up and do your own job. Well, I can't be looking up everybody. Well, okay, but presumably you could be looking up the very people who are in your Hall of Fame. Perhaps you could be expected to have heard about this case since you're watching the UFO situation like a dog, right?
Right.
And then he says, after a bit of back and forth on Tim Binnall's forum, he then says, "Oh well, we're looking into this right now on our forum, completely unrelated to this thread, not because you influenced me, you know." Really?
Right. No.
All right, let's let that go. Let's go back to what they're saying. And what he was talking about at the time was basically an inconsequential back and forth on the forum that someone had happened to say something in passing about Emma Woods or David Jacobs. It wasn't really an investigation at that point. But in any event, it sort of became that. And Schuler says here, on Jacobs, from the other thread, Jacobs is in the fame. Well, this is typos, but Jacobs is in the Hall of Fame right now, is basically what he's saying. But some stuff has turned up that doesn't look too flattering. If that can be substantiated, we might have to reconsider. We'll monitor the situation. Okay. So he's going to monitor the situation. But here on their Hall of Shame thread, Simone Mendez says, by the way, females in ufology, especially the claimed and wannabe contacted, are some of the worst experiences. Oh, this is going to be fun to read. Are some of the worst experiences with other hens that I have ever encountered. They seemed jealous, territorial, also low self-esteem, and a tad vicious. I was always the first to put out my hand of a little friendliness to them, but it was like when you try and do that to a feral cat. Hiss! I'm not kidding. You should have seen when I'd accidentally get between them and a big-time ufology guy that they were hanging on. Jesus Christmas. This bit of sexism, and let's be clear, I don't know if Simone Mendez is male or female, but it says other hens, so very well could be a female, but the sentiment is sexist, and it's thanked by none other than Michael Schuyler. So apparently he was okay with that. In fact, he found something decent in there. So this is the man looking into it.
Can I suggest that it may be the evil mustache that's doing this to Schuyler?
Yes, it could be Mr. Schuyler in the bathroom with a plumbing hose or something. He looks just like Colonel Mustard from Clue. That's beside the point. So, okay, now, Emma Woods sent me, I guess it was an email from Schuyler.
She responded to him, though, point by point, to everything that he said in his questionnaire there to her. And she did it in a really calm tone. I mean, there was no, row. There was none of that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same tone that you hear with her, with Jacobs.
Yeah, it's very calm. It's very polite. It's informative. It's answering to the questions that he brought up. So, I mean, it's quite long. I mean, or else we'd read it. But, coming up on 3 hours, I think we can just bypass that. I mean, it was just a lot of things that he had brought up. I mean, what were some of the concerns, Jeremy? I mean, just give us a couple.
All right. Well, let me preface this by saying that the tone of in the tone of the exchange, he is a douche, and she's responding to it kindly, and I guess you could say that maybe part of his douchiness is that she wondered if maybe they were trying to suppress her case because she had emailed Gene all of her information, and here he is, at least on Binnall's forum, acting as if he had never heard of it. So, for instance, Schuler says, I find Emma's letter disingenuous and accusatory. No one is trying to suppress Emma's information. In fact, quite the opposite is true. I have, for example, listed Emma's website on the forums twice. I've also appended a footnote to the Jacobs entry alerting anyone who reads it that Emma's situation has come up and that it deserves attention, once again with a link to Emma's website. I would hardly call it suppression, and quite frankly, I resent the accusation. So it's always this hostile fighting tone from these fucking retards over at Paracast UFO watchdog forum. To which she politely responds, on the forum, Gene did appear to give the impression initially that he had not seen my material. Other people obviously thought that as well. However, if there was another reason, that is fine. And he says, I also do not need to be lectured on the responsibilities of a patient-client relationship. Enough already! ! Dr. Jacobs was not my therapist, although the recording of him putting hypnotic suggestions in my mind that I had MPD, multiple personality disorder, does give this impression I was actually his research subject. And let's read one more, shall we? Emma has a point of view. She has shared this with us. I personally have read the material through. I think the material is poorly done on the whole. It does not read well. That is my opinion. It doesn't matter that Emma doesn't like this or think it's relevant. It is still my point of view. In any case, she's responsible for it, and insofar as it supports her case, fine, and insofar as it hurts her case, too bad. I don't really care one way or the other. I also think this sounds like a pissing match between two women. This is also my point of view. Emma, you can't mold the discussion on a forum thread to say only what you want people to say. You're not allowed to do that. Forum members can say whatever they want to within the house rules, and they will usually have various points of view, and my role as a moderator has nothing to do with it. When I don't have a moderator hat on, I participate in the discussion as an equal member. In fact, so far, I have never moderated anything and would never moderate a discussion in which I was heavily participating because I believe that to be unethical. To which she responds, I'm sorry, but you've completely misunderstood what has gone on here. In my email, I talked about the third research subject involved, the young man who was also subjected to Dr. Jacobs' misuse of hypnosis, and who had a similar experience in regard to Elizabeth that I did. Trying to reduce this down to a pissing match between two women is straight out wrong, and it completely ignores Dr. Jacobs' serious misconduct, for which there is ample evidence. And it goes on and on like this.
Right.
This is the investigative arm of UFO Watchdog? What? Are you kidding? Is this acceptable to anybody? I mean, hello?
Can I read the last letter?
Yeah, please read the last letter.
I believe this is a response to her responses to him.
That is correct.
Well, I think you are batshit insane myself. I think you need to get out more. I think you are obsessed and criminally harassing the man. I would be happy to testify on behalf of Dr. Jacobs should it ever come to that, which I doubt, and should I have anything useful to say. Meanwhile, I do not intend to correspond with you at all.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Right.
You're right about one thing. You don't have anything to offer.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty true.
Not just the Jacobs case, but anyone ever in ufology. Where did this guy come from? Oh, that's right. David Vaeni deemed him the smartest man I know. He's the most intelligent man I know. Because what I see is a fucking sexist, emotionally challenged asshole. Now this guy is in charge of UFO Watchdog? What? Who's watching UFO Watchdog at that point? I mean, that is unacceptable. That's not acceptable behavior. Is he going to come? What? Is he going to come back on the forum and brag about how he solved the case? When's that going to happen? I can't wait. It's fucking unreal. I mean, what has this woman been through? You know? And this is the treatment she gets? I mean,
yeah.
Why not just say, I don't like women? I don't trust women as far as I can throw them.
Well, clearly with a mustache like that, you can't.
It's unfucking believable to me.
Yeah. Well,
I got my problems with the Paracast and Vaeni and all that shit. We've got all that history.
Sure.
I don't even care about that at this point. Like, that's kind of beside the point. And the only thing I say is going to be interpreted as, oh, that's just an extension of that. No. This is legitimate, like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? How is this acceptable? How is what David Jacobs doing acceptable? Right. Why is she on trial? She's not on trial.
Right.
Hypnosis is on trial, and David Jacobs is on trial, and he refuses to fucking answer the charges.
And here's the truth of what we see here. Batshit insane or not. It doesn't matter, does it? Ultimately, her sanity is not even on the table here. It doesn't matter if she's crazy or not. What he did is not correct. What he's leveling at her is not within his scope. That's the fucking point. Okay? I don't think Emma's crazy, but I'm not a psychologist.
I think she was a librarian?
Yeah, exactly.
By trade or something along those lines?
Yeah,
something to do with libraries?
we're winning all the way around here. Yeah, I mean, this is the point. Bad shit, insane or not, makes no difference whatsoever to the evidence that's been presented that we can comment on because we've heard it. We've sat and listened to it. Its validity, I mean, the goddamn tapes don't sound like, well, you are. I mean, it's not. I mean, this is clearly a discussion.
It's just what you said, Jeff. She has laid out more point-by-point coherent evidence for what she's talking about than most ufologists for their own cases.
That's absolutely true.
And he has the gall to say, well, it's my opinion. I visited your website, and it all looked like gobbledygook to me. Really? Really? It looked like an incoherent mess? Are you fucking out of your mind? Then you shouldn't be probably dealing with cataloging anything in a library would be step one, but you definitely shouldn't be part of UFO Watchdog. If that's your opinion, well, it should be your learned opinion, because you're the watchdog. So there should be some reason that you're a UFO watchdog. There should be some qualification for that. Am I wrong?
What do you want me to say? I mean, I've seen this a billion times. This is the way it goes down. I mean, this is not surprising. This is surprising to you?
Yeah,
it's jaw dropping at the face of it. But I mean, are we at all surprised?
I'm surprised by how many people let this shit go and just go, "Oh, Schuler, you're so smart, you're so intelligent," because Dave Biedney dubbed him intelligent. I mean, that's it. Right. If Dave Biedney had dubbed him an idiot, everyone would be like, "Schuler's an idiot." Are people such fucking robots? Before? I mean, this is what it is. It's like you rail against other shows for having robotic, idiotic fan base. And then that's why you're attracted to the Paracast, and then you become part of their idiotic fan base that just takes anything they say at face value. And now these guys are not just in charge of the gold standard of podcasting, but UFO Watchdog. And so now you're going to transfer that unacceptable standard of gold, of fool's gold, onto UFO Watchdog, and everyone's going to go, yeah, that's great. You guys are clap, clap, clap. No, you're a fucking sexist. One, and I think that's a completely fair opinion based on your specific brand of hostility here, based on the fact that you thanked that post by Simone Mendez, which, granted, started off with some material about Jacobs, so you could say, well, I was thanking him for the material about Jacobs, except the material about Jacobs was arguably hostile material, and you don't have a problem with the guy. So I think it's safe to say that's not what you were responding to. Based on the fact that you are just writing this off as two women fighting over a therapist, all of this, are you insane? You don't think her website is organized, really? Would you talk this way to a man? I'm just wondering. I'm just curious. I mean, I guess you could say, well, I'm an equal opportunity asshole. I hate everyone equally. Great. Then I apologize. You're not a sexist. You're an overall asshole. But you still shouldn't be part of UFO Watchdog because, two, you just don't know what the fuck you're looking at. Or maybe it's so clouded by sexism that you wouldn't be able to see organization if it were in front of your eyes. Well-organized material. Unfucking believable. That's an investigation. And fuck you. I mean, that's an investigation. A middle finger to this woman. That's what they did.
Right.
I don't appreciate your tone, so investigation over, bitch.
Right.
Really?
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
And Gene was CC'd on this. Make no mistake. He didn't act alone in this. Gene was CC'd on it. As far as I know, hasn't apologized to her, hasn't reprimanded Schuler, hasn't done anything. Shock. Ugh. It's fucking disgusting.
But this is what I wrote to Emma when I sat down. I think it was really late Sunday night. And I said, or Monday night, and I said, look, the bottom line here is that I'm trying to think of every way that your case or your plight here can be dismissed. And the first hole that I see is that I don't know who you are. And I don't deal with anonymous people. I can't go on my show and give an opinion even about your case without knowing your name. And you can be rest assured that your name will never go any further than you and I. That's it. I will not reveal her name, and she came back and she said, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you giving a little attention to this. Gave me her name, and she felt comfortable doing that, and that's great. The other part I can't really get into, which is going to be the other write-off that everyone will label this with, is that, well, she's crazy. Okay, because Jacob even alludes to that in the recording that he thinks she. The bottom line here, it doesn't matter one way or the other if she's crazy or not. If she was crazy, then he should have referred her to some qualified therapist. So there's unethical practice number one, if he thought that. But bottom line, it doesn't really matter one way or the other.
That's right.
The practices that are coming out of this are not good.
But Jeff, what does it say about us that you can listen to a woman who's had her mind tampered with by a non-professional therapist type confronting him on that and being talked down to and having her feelings invalidated and being told not to tell the truth, not to speak up about it because it could hurt him, all of this, and her voice wavers and she gets upset, and cries, that's our cue to say she's a hysterical woman.
Right.
Really, that's what that boils down to. That's all we see. I mean, we really got to fucking evaluate what lens we look at these things through, you know?
Yeah. Believe me, I share your frustration with this because I mean, my jaw hit the floor when I saw I think you're batshit insane comment. I was like, yeah, well, my jaw hits the floor, but at the same time, am I surprised? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I hate to say, but, and everybody, of course, is going to say exactly what you just said, which is, this is all going to be about our disagreement with that show and how we're always at odds with each other. And really, no, it isn't, because what it boils down to is that show has always taken an antagonistic view towards certain people in this field who deserve it. Some of them deserved it. But the bottom line is that when you base your whole show around being the police of the UFO field and playing the good cop, bad cop role, you're going to attract that kind of person back into your show. You're going to attract those kind of followers. So, when the blood sport comes down, that's what you end up attracting. And I think this is a product of that.
Well, that's fine.
This is a product of that kind of
their show. That's all well and good, but don't do that with UFO Watchdog. That's supposed to mean something.
No. See, that all falls under the same umbrella. It's all about us against the rest of ufology, those crazy bastards, Yeah, no, it's not going to change anything. That won't mean anything to that. It's going to be more the same. I mean, they're going to write it off, and that's going to be it. And I've already told him. I said, one of the things I can see happening here is them writing you off because you're anonymous. But now I can see them writing them off because, she's crazy. She doesn't sound stable. Well, I wonder why. Number one, as we've already brought up.
I mean, I'm this angry just over this letter. I can't imagine what was going through her mind having a conversation with him. Are you joking?
Well, which is why you don't even bother with that type of person. But the other thing is that, I've told him, I said, I don't intend to let this drop and let it be forgotten. Because, as I've already said, ufology has the mental, sometimes I think the mental capacity, but the longevity of memory of a 1-year-old. So we can't let this just fade away without being answered for, or at least getting the other side of the story. I mean, we really need that other side of the story at this point. Like I've said, I see a lot of insurmountable evidence here that unless there's a really wild tale to tell, I don't see how this is going to work out good for Jacobs. I don't see it working out well. So again, here's the plea. Come on this show and address this stuff, because this is all we got to go on right now, and it doesn't look good at all. Past that, I don't really know how much more we can say about this. UFO Watchdog, I mean, what do you want me to say there?
Well, hell, you know what?
There's nothing you can say.
Go on the Paracast. If you think we're going to be hostile to you, and clearly they're going to give you a pass, go there and explain. I mean, I just want to hear your side of the story. I would love for you to come on our show and all that stuff. But go wherever you feel comfortable. If you feel comfortable doing a written reply on your own website, anything.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Say something. Be a fucking man. Stop running from hybrids. Stop running from potential lawsuits.
I mean, at this point, wouldn't it be better that if you've made a mistake to just admit the mistake and say, yes, I made a grievous error in this situation, and someone was hurt by it, period. Now, I guess that's too much to ask, because then there's all sorts of legalese litigation that can go on if you do that. But I don't know. I mean, it looks bad. It looks real bad.
Well,
and the fact that nothing's been said looks even worse to me.
She said she wants to take action, and that was one of the initial things I remember morons over there harping on. Oh, she wants to take action. Presume, she's going to sue him and blah, blah, blah. No, she never said she was going to sue him. Everybody just jumped to a conclusion. That's the last thing she wants to do, actually. She wants to be fucking acknowledged, And if that means, going to Temple University or whatever, somebody somewhere has got to, in an official capacity, say you were wronged. I mean, Jacobs could stop all of this by just acknowledging her, frankly, I feel. I think it was pretty clear on that.
It doesn't sound like it even had to get to this point, really. It doesn't sound like it had to go where it is now. But
he's afraid. Once I acknowledge it, well, then she could sue me. But he doesn't get it, because he never, apparently, I mean, it seems clear to me, cared about her state of mind, and therefore he doesn't understand her state of mind now, which is still not, I want to sue him and take him down. It's still, I want an amicable resolution, and at this point, I don't know what that would be, but it wouldn't, I don't get the sense from her, just in email exchanges, that means she's got to sue him, but he doesn't trust that. And it's his distrust of all of that, and his watching his ass to the point of trying to offend her in conversation to win the conversation or somehow regain dominance and control, that is going to be his undoing. Right. Like you said, it doesn't have to be this way.
No. No. Well, it's too late. I mean, it's too late. Now it is this way, and it is what it is. And I think every day that goes by without some kind of official reply or the other side of the story or something, I think, is going to be a problem. I think the very fact that what perked my ears about this whole thing was the fact that we brought it up to Dr. Lilienfeld on that one episode. And the fact that Jacobs didn't write us, he wrote our guest and said, you need to talk to me before, you say anything about this. And of course, Scott said, whatever. Too late.
And isn't it telling? Remember, he got his name wrong. He called him Dr. Greenfield.
Right.
And here we are in this episode hearing that he doesn't have a memory for shit. I mean, it's all it's all coming back, It's
all coming back, yeah. It's all coming together. But I don't know this because, again, I'm not a lawyer either. But when we come to her leveling some kind of lawsuit over being, psychologically damaged in some way, I would think that the judge would say, well, it seems to me you readily accepted what was going on with you. You readily sat down. It was only at a certain point when you took a step back that you realized, no, this is not right, and I want out of this. And Jacobs didn't tie you to the couch and force you. You did this willingly. I think that would be her problem with any sort of lawsuit. But again, I don't know. Maybe I'm sure there's some kind of statute somewhere in some book that.
Well, I think if he were an actual therapist, you would have the case of the hierarchical relationship, and that she doesn't have 100% control. She's giving her trust and sense of authority over to this man here, but because he's not, I don't know. I want you might be right about that. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but you might be right about that. Maybe there's nothing she can do for the simple fact that he's not. That he is just a book researcher at the end of the day.
Well, I think a judge would say, what in the world would you ever let this man diddle around with you with hypnotherapy? Why would you even do that? Well, he's a researcher into this phenomenon, blah, blah, blah. And I think at that point it would be like, well, what are you thinking that you wouldn't go to a regular therapist? Well, I have been to a regular. You see how that could just go on and on.
I would like to know why her regular therapist saw fit to refer her to David Jacobs.
Yeah.
I mean, is this another case of because psychotherapists don't acknowledge and validate abduction experiences, that they're like, well, that's out of my field. Why don't you go to this fucking hack moron over here and he'll help you?
Right, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think somewhat earlier, is that I have a problem with what I hear from Jacobs within the tapes, within the discussions, the lack of critical thought, the gullibility, the tactics, all of that. I have a problem with all of that. And I do see your point about, the leadership role, the rock position that he holds in this relationship of researcher subject type of thing. I get all that. At the same time, I can't put all of this, every bit of it, onto Jacobs. I can't do that, because ultimately everyone's got to be responsible for themselves in some capacity. I don't care who you are, what fucking situation you're in. So I sympathize with her position. It wasn't right, but at the same time, again, there's that level of critical thought that has to be employed so that you don't find yourself in that. So absolutely. Jacobs isn't all at fault here. I think this is I think Jacobs, in my opinion, from what I've heard, again, qualifying that, did some wrong things and assumed some wrong ends here, and was or did lack critical thought in dealing with her. But again, we can't put it all on him. She did allow this to go on. But then it's the whole kind of, I don't know, dirty cover up of what I did to you. And that doesn't need to be said. And then I'm sure there's a whole host of other issues within that we didn't even get a chance to talk about. But I don't know. It's a mess. So I think we're going to definitely be in contact with Emma some more. And I think this warrants another email to Dr. Jacobs when we get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Just to see if we can get him to respond to anything.
And I agree with everything you just said. I don't disagree with that. Of course, she is an adult and has a responsibility to be logical. But it again, for the purposes of what we're talking about here, it doesn't matter if she's crazy, delusional, sane, responsible, irresponsible. He's definitely the one who's supposed to be responsible in this situation.
Right.
And what somebody needs to do, and what I guess I'm going to take this upon myself, Jeff, to call up the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and see if I can find out whether or not Jacobs is a licensed hypnotherapist, a licensed therapist of any sort. I don't see it on the internet anywhere that he is. If you're diagnosing someone with multiple personality disorder and all that sort of stuff, I mean, do you need a medical doctor's opinion on that, or are you allowed to do that with someone under hypnosis? Especially, these are the types of things that a real UFO watchdog could ask and could find out. Is Temple University? Do they play a role in this? Is he doing this on the grounds of Temple University? Is she merely a research subject for a book, or is he doing some sort of human experimentation? I mean, there are various things that you need various licenses for and permissions for. Does he have them? Now, to be perfectly honest, some of those I thought of myself, but most of them were given to me by a friend who is knowledgeable in such things. I'm not versed in these things. I'm just a humble podcaster. Right.
And then at the same time, you've got the ufological, police telling her she's batshit and saying she needs to get out more. I mean, you see how impossible this situation is when you're talking about ufology? This is what you get. This is what happens. Because when somebody thinks that they're at the top of that food chain and they ignore it and they say you're batshit, you're crazy, and I've seen this for years. The problem is that when you're in a position where people look to you as some sort of authority, you have got to respect that idea. And you've got to be careful with what you say. You've got to be careful with how you treat people. Because ultimately, Schuler here says, you're batshit. I don't intend to correspond with you. This is the guy who's supposed to be investigating this for Watchdog, and this is what's going to be, we're leaving Jacobs in the Hall of Fame until we find out otherwise, right? I hate to say it, but that gets out to the UFO interested public, oh, well, it's the guy from the Paracast. Well, the Paracast is the gold standard. So therefore, that kind of ignorance just kind of percolates through ufology. And eventually, Emma, this case, all the wrongs on both sides that have happened, it's all forgotten. It just goes down the river. It's gone. That happens time after time after time. When the person in a position of any amount of influence into the consciousness of what people think about this subject marginalizes something, therefore people won't look into it because, well, if that guy's already kind of put it to bed, why should I bother looking? It's done. I mean, I trust his judgment.
Right.
You see how that works? And everything goes down the shitter from there. And I'd be willing to state unequivocally that I think a lot of good data has gone down the fucking toilet because of some douchebag who thinks he is something to this field and has the ear of some people or of a large body of people even. Look at what a large audience somebody like Greer has. Says it's garbage, and then it just goes down the river. That's what I can see happening with this. That's why I think we have to stay on top of this, press to hear the other side of the story from Dr. Jacobs, press to hear more from Emma. I mean, this has got to be followed to its logical conclusion. And we need to find out just what went down. We need Dr. Jacobs' side of the story. Without that, we're only hearing one side. And that's not worth a lot unless you're Emma Woods and you've got this kind of data piled up in front of you in such a chronologically ordered and comprehensive manner. Then it's a little hard to ignore. So
we will carry on not ignoring it.
Yeah, we will carry on not
be the gold standard. Will be the voice of reason. How about that? There's our new mantra.
The voice of reason. I don't want to be the voice of reason. I just want to. You just got to do what's right. I mean, you can't let something like this just get swept away because so and so says it's this or it's that. I mean, I've already promised Emma we won't let this falter and go by the wayside. If she's wrong in this and we're being bamboozled, and we're being lied to and all this shit's made up, we got her name.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I mean, there's someone to hold account. I just don't think that's the case. I don't think she's lying. I don't think she has concocted these tapes with an impersonator. Or other word, by now, Dr. Jacobs would have said, "Hey, wait a minute, that's not me. I don't even know who this woman is. Oops, did I just give him an excuse? I hope not." But we've got to follow this out, and certainly not every show from here to the end of this mess is going to be about that. But we're going to be checking in, and we're going to be reporting on it from time to time.
Very good. I'm going to go stick my head in some ice. Good night, Paratopia.
Good night.